Daniel Hart's hands wouldn't stop shaking. The oncology corridor smelled like antiseptic and fear, and somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped its monotonous rhythm. 3 years ago, he'd sat in a different hospital, watching his wife slip away. Now he was back, waiting for test results that could shatter what little he'd rebuilt, a life held together by oil-stained work shirts and his 6-year-old daughter's laughter. Across the waiting area, a woman in a charcoal suit stared at her phone with the kind of focus people use to avoid falling apart. Neither of them knew they were about to save each other. If you're watching from Chicago, New York, London, or anywhere in between, drop your city in the comments and hit that like button. Let's see how far this story travels. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that particular shade of institutional white that made Daniel feel like he was already a ghost. He pressed his palms against his jeans, trying to dry the sweat, trying to ground himself in something real. The waiting room chair creaked under his weight, cheap plastic designed for temporary suffering. 6 days ago, he'd noticed the bruising on his ribs wouldn't fade. 4 days ago, his general practitioner had gone very quiet during the examination. 2 days ago, the word biopsy had entered his vocabulary with the weight of a death sentence. And now, Tuesday afternoon at 2:47 p.m., Daniel Hart sat in the oncology wing of Northwestern Memorial Hospital, waiting to find out if his daughter was about to lose her second parent before she turned 7. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor, who was watching Lily. "She's fine. Made her a snack. Take your time." Daniel typed back a thank you with fingers that felt disconnected from his body. Lily. 6 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with dinosaurs, and convinced her dad could fix anything because he fixed cars for a living. She didn't know where he was today. He told her he had an important appointment, kissed her forehead, and left before she could ask the questions that would make him lie to her face. He'd promised himself after Emma died that he would never lie to Lily. But how do you tell a 6-year-old that the universe might be cruel enough to take both her parents before she learns to read chapter books? "Mr. Hart?" Daniel's head snapped up. A nurse stood in the doorway, clipboard in hand, expression professionally neutral. His heart stopped. "Dr. Reeves is still reviewing your results," she said. "It'll be another 30 to 40 minutes. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" 30 to 40 minutes. An eternity compressed into clinical efficiency. "I'm fine," Daniel said, though he was the furthest thing from fine he'd been since Emma's funeral. The nurse nodded and disappeared back through the double doors that separated the waiting from the knowing. Daniel exhaled slowly, trying to remember the breathing technique the grief counselor had taught him. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out. It hadn't worked then either. He became aware of movement to his left. The woman in the charcoal suit had shifted position, crossing her legs the other direction. She was probably in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a style that said she didn't have time for anything that wasn't essential. Her suit was expensive. Daniel knew fabric quality from the luxury cars that occasionally rolled into his shop, and her shoes probably cost more than his monthly rent. She looked like she'd walked out of a corporate tower and accidentally ended up in a cancer ward. Wrong genre, wrong story. Their eyes met for half a second, and Daniel saw it. The same barely controlled terror he felt lodged behind his sternum. She looked away quickly, back to her phone, but her hands were shaking too. We're all the same here, Daniel thought. Doesn't matter if your suit costs $5,000 or $50. Fear is the great equalizer. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus, his best friend and co-worker at the garage. How'd it go? Daniel stared at the message. He hadn't told Marcus exactly what the appointment was for, just that he needed the afternoon off. Marcus had covered for him without questions, the way he'd been covering for Daniel in small and large ways since Emma died. Still waiting, Daniel typed back. Update later. The double doors opened again, and Daniel's whole body tensed. But it was just another patient being escorted in, an elderly man with a walker and a resigned expression that suggested this wasn't his first rodeo with cancer. Daniel forced himself to look away, to focus on something else. Anything else. His eyes landed on the magazine table. 6-month-old issues of People in Time, a wrinkled pamphlet about nutrition during chemotherapy, a card with the hospital chapel's hours. He wasn't religious anymore. That had died with Emma, or maybe it had just been exposed as the fairy tale it always was. What kind of universe let a 32-year-old mother of a toddler waste away from pancreatic cancer? What kind of plan included that? Ava Cross? Daniel looked up. A different nurse, this one older, with kind eyes and sensible shoes. The woman in the charcoal suit stood immediately, smoothing her jacket with hands that betrayed her nerves. Doctor, Patel is ready for you, the nurse said. Ava Cross. So that was her name. She gathered her purse, designer leather, matching the shoes, and followed the nurse toward the double doors. Just before she disappeared, she glanced back at the waiting room. Her eyes found Daniel's again, and this time neither of them looked away. Some wordless acknowledgement passed between them. I see you. I see your fear. I'm terrified too. Then she was gone, and Daniel was alone again with the humming lights and the distant beeping and the crushing weight of uncertainty. He pulled out his wallet, flipped it open to the photo he kept in the clear sleeve. Lily, age 4, covered in finger paint, grinning like she'd just discovered the secret to happiness. Emma stood behind her, hands on Lily's shoulders, eyes bright with the kind of love that could make you believe the world was fundamentally good. 6 months before the diagnosis. 6 months before everything shattered. I'm sorry, Daniel whispered to the photo, though he wasn't sure who he was apologizing to or for what. For maybe dying, for not being enough, for bringing a child into a world this casually cruel. Time moved like syrup. Daniel watched the wall clock tick through 15 minutes, then 20. Other people came and went, families clustered together, lone individuals staring at nothing, everyone marinating in the particular anxiety of medical waiting rooms. His phone rang. He almost didn't answer, but the caller ID showed Lily's school. Mr. Hart, this is Principal Rodriguez. Daniel's stomach dropped. Is Lily okay? She's fine. She's fine, Rodriguez said quickly. There was just a small incident on the playground. Another child pushed her. She fell and scraped her knee. Nothing serious, but she's asking for you. Of course she was. Daniel closed his eyes, fought back the wave of helplessness. I'm in the middle of something. Can Mrs. Chen pick her up? She's on the authorized list. Of course. I just wanted to let you know. Thank you. Tell Lily I love her, and I'll see her soon. He hung up and pressed his palms against his eyes. Be in 2 places at once. Be enough for your daughter while falling apart in a hospital. Figure out how to parent from beyond the grave if necessary. The double doors swung open again. Ava Cross emerged, and Daniel noticed immediately that something was wrong. Her composure had cracked. She moved stiffly, her face pale, and her eyes had that glassy quality that comes right before tears break through. She made it 3 steps into the waiting room before another woman intercepted her. Ava, fancy meeting you here. The newcomer was older, maybe 60, with silver hair styled in a severe bob and a navy suit that screamed money and power. She smiled, but it was the smile of a shark that had just scented blood in the water. Ava stopped. Her hand gripped her purse strap so hard her knuckles went white. Marlene, what are you doing here? My mother's neurologist has an office on this floor, Marlene said smoothly. And you? Everything all right? You look unwell. Daniel watched the exchange with growing unease. There was history here, and hostility, and something predatory in the way Marlene was studying Ava's reaction. I'm fine, Ava said, but her voice wavered. Just a routine checkup. In the oncology wing? Marlene's smile sharpened. How concerning. I do hope it's nothing serious. The Riverside merger is at such a critical stage. The board would be devastated if something were to compromise your ability to lead. Ava's face went from pale to ashen. There's nothing to compromise. I'm perfectly capable. Of course you are, Marlene purred. Though I can't help but notice you're here alone. No family, no support system. That must be difficult handling something like this by yourself. If you ever need to step back, take time to focus on your health, I'm sure the board would understand. Daniel knew a power play when he saw one. He'd watched enough people get maneuvered out of their jobs at the garage. Subtle, undermining, concern trolling, waiting for weakness to show before moving in for the kill. Ava was drowning, right there in the waiting room, and this Marlene person was holding her head underwater while smiling sympathetically. Their eyes met across the room. Ava's desperate, pleading, terrified, and Daniel made a decision that would change everything. He stood up and walked over. Sweetheart, there you are. he said, reaching for Ava's hand. Sorry I'm late. Had to move the car. How'd it go? Ava stared at him, frozen, and for one terrible second Daniel thought he'd completely misread the situation. Then her fingers closed around his, tight enough to hurt, and she leaned into him slightly. It went fine, she stammered. Daniel, this is Marlene Wexler. She's on the board at Cross Development. Marlene, this is my husband, Daniel. Husband. The word hung in the air like a live grenade. Marlene's eyes narrowed, reassessing. Your husband? How lovely. I don't recall you mentioning a marriage at any of our board meetings. We prefer to keep our personal life private, Daniel said, sliding his arm around Ava's waist and feeling her trembling against him. Ava doesn't broadcast everything to the office. Clearly. Marlene's gaze raked over him, taking in his worn jeans, his flannel shirt with Hart's Auto Repair stitched over the pocket, his work boots. Everything about him screamed working class, blue collar, not even in the same economic universe as these women. And what do you do, Daniel? I'm a mechanic, he said evenly. I fix things that are broken. Something flickered in Marlene's expression. Disappointment, maybe, that she couldn't find an angle of attack in his ordinariness. How refreshing. Well, I won't keep you two. Ava, I'll see you at Thursday's board meeting. Do take care of yourself. She walked away, heels clicking against linoleum, and Daniel felt Ava sag against him. Don't let go, she whispered. Please don't let go yet. She's watching. Daniel held her, the stranger in her expensive suit, and felt the desperate rhythm of her breathing. Over her shoulder, he could see Marlene by the elevators, phone to her ear, eyes still fixed on them. When she's gone, Daniel murmured into Ava's hair, catching the scent of some perfume that probably cost more than his car payment. They stood there, frozen in their impromptu performance, until the elevator doors finally closed on Marlene's calculating stare. Ava stepped back immediately, putting space between them. Her face was flushed, her composure shattered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She can't know. If the board finds out I'm sick, they'll use it against me. Marlene's been waiting for an excuse to push me out for months. It's okay, Daniel said, though his heart was hammering and he felt like he'd just jumped out of a plane without checking if the parachute worked. I get it. Power politics. You have no idea. Ava pressed her hands to her face, and when she lowered them, there were tears in her eyes. Stage 2. Maybe stage 3 they need more tests. I have to come back Thursday for additional scans, and they want to start treatment immediately. But if the board finds out I'm not at full capacity, Marlene will call for a leadership review, and the merger will collapse, and 5 years of work will be destroyed, and I'll lose everything. She was spiraling, words tumbling over each other, and Daniel recognized the edge of panic from his own mirror. Hey. He touched her elbow gently. Breathe, you're okay. Right now, in this moment, you're okay. Ava looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression cracked. Why did you do that? You don't even know me. Daniel thought about the way she'd looked when Marlene was circling, thought about drowning and lifelines and the strange solidarity of terror. Because I know what it's like to be afraid, and nobody should have to be afraid alone. She laughed, a broken sound. I'm never not alone. That's the whole problem. The double doors opened. Mr. Hart? Doctor. Reeves will see you now. Daniel's mouth went dry. This was it, the moment of truth. Ava saw his face change. Oh no, you're waiting for results too. He nodded, unable to speak. Then we're both drowning, she said softly. The nurse cleared her throat. Mr. Hart? Go, Ava said, and thank you for before. Daniel walked toward the doors on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. At the threshold, he looked back. Ava stood in the middle of the waiting room, looking lost and small despite her power suit and her CEO confidence. Two strangers in a hospital, both terrified of the same thing, being erased. Dr. Reeves was a compact woman in her 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm that comes from delivering bad news professionally for decades. Mr. Hart, please sit down. Daniel sat. The exam room was small, sterile, decorated with a single poster showing the layers of human skin. He stared at it while Dr. Reeves pulled up his file on her computer. Your biopsy results came back, she said, and Daniel stopped breathing. The good news is we didn't find any malignancy, but the world tilted. I don't have cancer? The tissue samples were clean, Dr. Reeves said. However, there were some irregularities we need to monitor. I'm seeing markers that could indicate an autoimmune condition affecting your liver. Nothing immediately dangerous, but we need to run additional blood work and possibly imaging to rule out. Daniel barely heard the rest. Not cancer. He wasn't dying. Lily wouldn't lose him. Want you to come back Thursday morning, doctor, Reeves was saying. We'll do a full panel, get a complete picture, but as of right now, you can breathe easier. Whatever this is, it's manageable. Manageable. The most beautiful word in the English language. Thursday, Daniel repeated numbly. Okay, Thursday. He walked out of the exam room in a daze, relief flooding through him so intensely it felt like intoxication. The waiting room swam back into focus. The humming lights, the uncomfortable chairs, the other frightened people. Ava was still there, sitting in the corner, staring at nothing. Daniel walked over and sat down next to her. Not cancer, he said quietly. Something else maybe, but not cancer. She turned to look at him, and he saw genuine happiness flicker across her face. That's wonderful. I'm so glad. But I have to come back Thursday for more tests. He rubbed his face. And you? Thursday too, for staging scans. Her voice was flat, exhausted. Find out exactly how bad it is. They sat in silence for a moment, two people on opposite sides of the diagnosis divide. The thing with Marlene, Ava said suddenly. She meant it. If she finds out I'm sick, she'll orchestrate a coup. I've worked 16 years to build cross-development from a small property management firm into a major player. The Riverside merger would triple our holdings, secure our position in the market for the next decade. And Marlene wants to scuttle it because she thinks I'm too aggressive, too willing to take risks. She's been looking for any excuse to undermine my authority. Daniel listened, trying to understand a world so different from his own. So what will you do? I don't know. Ava's hands twisted together in her lap. Lie. Hide it. Hope I can schedule treatment around board meetings and conference calls. Pretend everything's fine while my body tries to kill me. That sounds exhausting. Everything about my life is exhausting. She looked at him sideways. You really are a mechanic? For 12 years. Hart's Auto Repair on Clayton Street. My dad started it. I took over when he retired to Florida. And you have a family, besides the fake wife you just acquired? Daniel smiled despite everything. A daughter, Lily. She's 6. No actual wife? She died 3 years ago. Cancer, actually. Pancreatic. Fast and mean. Ava's face softened. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Daniel stared at his hands, the permanent oil stains under his nails that no amount of scrubbing could remove. So when you started panicking about your diagnosis, I got it. I've been on the other side of that. They sat together in the strange intimacy of shared grief. My assistant is going to call me in about 10 minutes, Ava said slowly, wanting to know what the doctor said. If I tell her it's cancer, she'll put it in my calendar notes. Within an hour, Marlene will know. She has someone in my office feeding her information. Corporate espionage? The polite term is competitive intelligence gathering. Ava's smile was bitter. The Riverside merger vote is Thursday afternoon. If I can get through that meeting without Marlene discovering I'm sick, the deal will close and my position will be secure enough that even cancer won't dislodge me. But if she finds out before then, Daniel saw where this was going. You need the fake husband to stick around. Ava turned to face him fully. I know it's insane. I know you don't know me and you have your own life and your daughter and every reason to say no. But I'm desperate. If Marlene saw me leave here alone, she'll dig. She'll call the hospital, bribe someone for information, find out I was in oncology for a diagnosis, not a checkup. But if she thinks I have a husband, a support system, that I'm emotionally stable and capable, it might buy you the time you need, Daniel finished. Just until Thursday, 3 days. I'll pay you. I don't want your money. Ava blinked. Then what do you want? Daniel thought about Lily, about the fear that had been eating him alive for the past week, about single parenthood and safety nets and the terrible fragility of one-income households. Information, he said. If my tests Thursday come back bad, If it turns out I do have something serious, I need to know that Lily will be taken care of. I need help figuring out how to protect her if I can't be there. It was the most vulnerable thing he'd admitted to anyone since Emma died. Ava studied him with new intensity. You want me to help you plan for your daughter's future. You're clearly good at planning and protecting things that matter. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know how to set up trusts or navigate guardianship or any of that. I've been putting it off because thinking about it makes it real. His throat tightened. But if you help me make sure Lily's safe, I'll help you keep your company. 3 days of pretending. That's the trade. Ava extended her hand. Deal. They shook on it, and Daniel felt the surreal weight of what he'd just agreed to. Fake husband to a CEO. A 3-day performance to fool a corporate shark. We should probably know basic things about each other, Ava said, pulling out her phone. In case Marlene asks questions. She's thorough. For the next 20 minutes, they sat in the oncology waiting room exchanging facts like students cramming for an exam. Daniel learned that Ava was 38, had built her company from scratch after dropping out of business school, drove a Tesla, lived in a Lincoln Park penthouse, and took her coffee black. Ava learned that Daniel was 35, had met Emma in college before dropping out to help with his dad's business, drove a 12-year-old Ford pickup, lived in a 3-bedroom house in Evanston that he was slowly fixing up, and took his coffee with too much sugar. They had nothing in common except fear and a strange, desperate alliance. Where did we meet? Ava asked, typing notes into her phone. Daniel thought for a moment. Your car broke down on the Kennedy Expressway. I stopped to help. You were impressed that I could fix a Tesla with improvised tools. How long ago? 2 years. We kept it quiet because you didn't want your business life complicated by your personal life. That tracks. Ava smiled slightly. And we got married? 6 months ago. Small ceremony. Just us and Lily. You didn't want the media circus a big wedding would bring. You're good at this. I've read a lot of stories to Lily. You pick up narrative structure. Ava's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her expression tightened. It's my assistant. I need to answer this. She stood and walked a few feet away, her voice dropping into professional efficiency. Rachel, hi. Yes, I'm just leaving the hospital now. Routine checkup, everything's fine. Can you push tomorrow's 9 a.m. to 10:30? Thanks. She hung up and came back to Daniel. And so it begins. The lying. For 3 days, Daniel reminded her. For 3 days, she echoed. Then I'll help you with Lily's future, and we'll go our separate ways. It sounded simple, transactional, safe. Neither of them could have known how wrong they were. Daniel picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment at 5:30, hugging her tight enough to make her squirm and giggle. Daddy, you're squishing me. Sorry, baby. Missed you today. Her knee was scraped and bandaged, but she seemed to have forgotten about it already. She chattered all the way home about the playground incident, how Tommy Johnson had pushed her, how she'd pushed back, how Principal Rodriguez had made them both apologize. And then Mrs. Chen made me mac and cheese and let me watch Encanto even though it was before dinner time, Lily said, swinging their joined hands as they walked up to their house. It was the best day. Daniel unlocked the front door and felt the familiar wave of home wash over him. The house was small, a little shabby, perpetually in need of repairs he kept meaning to get to. But it was theirs. The living room had Lily's drawings taped to the walls. The kitchen still had Emma's recipe cards in a box on the counter. The second bedroom was Lily's kingdom of stuffed animals and dinosaur posters. Homework? Daniel asked. Reading. I have to read for 20 minutes, and you have to sign the log. They settled on the couch together, Lily tucked under his arm, working through a book about a dragon who was afraid of heights. Daniel signed the reading log with his terrible handwriting and watched Lily carefully sound out the bigger words. This. This was what mattered. Not corporate mergers or fake marriages or any of it. Just this. His daughter safe beside him, reading about dragons, believing her dad could fix anything. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Marlene just called me. She's fishing for information about you. I told her you're private and don't do social media. Just a heads up. Ava. Daniel stared at the message. 3 days. He could do 3 days. Another text. And thank you. Again. I know this is strange. He typed back, Strange is relative. We'll make it work. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, get some sleep. Tomorrow starts the performance. Daniel set his phone aside and focused on Lily, on the dragon story, on the ordinary evening routine that felt precious now in a way it hadn't before today. Bath time, teeth brushing, picking out tomorrow's outfit, the negotiation over how many bedtime stories she got. 3 stories, Lily declared, because I'm brave and I pushed Tommy back. 2 stories, Daniel countered, because it's a school night. 2.5? He laughed. You drive a hard bargain. Fine, 2.5. He read her 2 complete books and half of a third before her eyes started drooping. He kissed her forehead, turned on her nightlight, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep, the way he had every night since Emma died, making sure she was real and breathing and still his. In his own room, Daniel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the surreal turn his life had taken. This morning he'd been terrified he was dying. Tonight he was part of a fake marriage to a woman he'd met 6 hours ago. His phone lit up with another text from Ava. Sent you a file, my calendar for the next 3 days. In case anyone asks where I am, you should know. Daniel opened the attachment. Ava's schedule was packed. Meetings, conference calls, site visits, the board meeting Thursday afternoon. Every hour accounted for, color-coded, ruthlessly efficient. He sent back a photo of his own calendar, a paper one hanging in the kitchen, mostly blank except for Lily, dentist, on Wednesday, and his hospital appointment Thursday morning. Very different lives, Ava texted back. Very, Daniel agreed. See you tomorrow? Lunch? I should probably introduce my husband to a few key people. Where? I'll text you the address. Noon. Wear something without oil stains if possible. Daniel smiled despite himself. I'll try my best. He set his phone on the nightstand and closed his eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. In the darkness, he kept seeing Ava's face when Marlene had cornered her. The naked fear, the desperation. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself. 3 days. They could both survive 3 days. And then they'd go back to their separate worlds, their separate struggles, their separate fears. Strangers again. Somehow, that thought bothered him more than it should have. Wednesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made Chicago feel almost cinematic. Daniel dropped Lily at school with an extra-long hug that made her wrinkle her nose. Daddy, you're being weird again. Can a guy hug his daughter? Not this much. She studied him with those 2 perceptive eyes that reminded him painfully of Emma. Are you sad? No, baby. I'm happy. I'm really happy. And he was. The relief of yesterday's non-diagnosis still hummed through his veins like caffeine. He wasn't dying. Whatever autoimmune thing the doctor suspected could be managed, treated, lived with. Lily wouldn't be orphaned. That single fact made everything else, the strange deal with Ava, the fake marriage, the corporate intrigue, feel almost trivial by comparison. Okay. Lily didn't sound convinced, but she let it go. Love you, Daddy. Love you more, dinosaur. She ran toward the school entrance, backpack bouncing, shouting something to a friend. Daniel watched until she disappeared inside, then checked his phone. A text from Ava was waiting. Noon at 16. It's in the Trump Tower. Valet will take your truck. Don't panic. Daniel Googled the restaurant and felt his stomach drop. 16 was the kind of place where appetizers cost more than his average grocery bill. The dress code probably had opinions about his entire wardrobe. He drove to the garage, explained to Marcus that he needed to leave early for a personal appointment, and endured his friend's knowing look. You've got that look, Marcus said, wiping his hands on a shop rag. The "my life just got complicated" look. It's nothing. Uh-huh. The nothing that had you shaking like a leaf yesterday? That nothing? Daniel had worked with Marcus for 8 years. They'd rebuilt engines together, covered each other's shifts, gotten drunk exactly twice, and never talked about feelings if they could avoid it. But Marcus had been there the day Emma died, had held Daniel up at the funeral, had watched Lily on countless evenings when Daniel needed to fall apart in private. The test came back okay, Daniel said. It's not cancer. Marcus's face flooded with relief. Jesus, man, you should have told me you were that scared. Yeah, well, telling people makes it real. And now? Now I have to go have lunch at a fancy restaurant because apparently my life is a weird movie. Marcus laughed. You want to borrow my sport coat? The one I wore to my sister's wedding? You're 2 sizes bigger than me. Details. Daniel ended up wearing his least faded jeans, a button-down shirt he usually reserved for parent-teacher conferences, and a leather jacket that had belonged to his dad. In the garage bathroom mirror, he looked like a mechanic trying to cosplay as someone with a 401k. It would have to do. The drive downtown felt surreal. Daniel had lived in Chicago his whole life, but rarely ventured into the kinds of spaces where people like Ava existed. The Trump Tower loomed over the river, all glass and steel and aggressive verticality. He pulled up to the valet stand, feeling acutely aware of his truck's dented bumper and the check engine light that had been on for 3 months. "Welcome to 16, sir," the valet said with the kind of professional courtesy that made Daniel feel even more out of place. The restaurant occupied the 16th floor, naturally, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the Chicago River and Lake Michigan beyond. The decor was all clean lines and muted elegance, the kind of space designed to make you speak in hushed tones. Ava was already seated at a table by the window, looking every inch the CEO in a cream blazer and silk blouse. She saw him and stood, and Daniel noticed the slight hesitation before she smiled, the same performance anxiety he felt. "Daniel, you made it." He crossed to her, hyper-aware of the other diners watching. Rich people always watched. Traffic wasn't bad. She kissed his cheek, a careful, calculated gesture, and he caught the same expensive perfume from yesterday. Up close, he could see the fine lines of stress around her eyes, the careful application of makeup that didn't quite hide her exhaustion. They sat, and a server materialized to present menus and pour water with the kind of choreographed precision that suggested training. "This place is—" Daniel trailed off, scanning menu prices that made his mechanic's salary weep. "Excessive?" Ava supplied. "Welcome to my world. Order whatever you want. It's on the company card." "Do they have burgers?" "They have a Wagyu beef preparation with truffle aioli and microgreens." "So, a fancy burger." She smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. "Essentially." They ordered. Daniel got the fancy burger, Ava got a salad she probably wouldn't eat, and then sat in the awkward silence of 2 people pretending to be intimate while being essentially strangers. "So," Daniel said, "what's the play here? Why are we doing this in public?" Ava glanced around the restaurant, then leaned forward slightly. "See the woman 3 tables over? Navy dress, red hair?" Daniel looked. The woman was in her 40s, professionally polished, typing on a laptop between bites of salmon. "That's Jennifer Moss," Ava said quietly. "She's the CFO at Riverside Properties, the company we're acquiring. She's also having lunch with 2 of our board members at 1 o'clock in the private dining room upstairs. Marlene arranged it." "You think Marlene's trying to sabotage the merger?" "I think Marlene's creating insurance. If she can convince Riverside that I'm not stable leadership, they might push for different terms. Maybe insist on her taking over as CEO as a condition of the deal." Ava's fingers twisted her napkin. "So I need to look stable, happy, supported, like I have a life outside the office and a husband who grounds me." "And you think Jennifer will report back to Riverside's board that you seem fine?" "I think she'll report everything she sees to everyone who'll listen. That's how this world works. Every lunch is intelligence gathering, every conversation is positioning." Daniel thought about his world, the garage, where the worst politics involved who got stuck with the oil changes and whether to order pizza or Chinese for lunch. That sounds exhausting. "It is." Ava took a sip of water. "But it's also the only thing I know how to do. I built cross-development from nothing. My parents were both teachers, solidly middle class, supportive but practical. They didn't understand why I dropped out of Northwestern to chase what they called pipe dreams. When my first property deal succeeded, they were shocked. When my 10th succeeded, they were worried I was working too hard. When I bought my first building, they asked when I was going to settle down and have kids." "And did you want that? Kids?" Ava was quiet for a moment. "I told myself there would be time later. After the business was established, after I'd proven myself, after the next merger. There's always a next merger." She looked out the window at the city sprawling below. And then suddenly you're 38 and sitting in an oncology ward and realizing that later might not exist. Daniel understood that in his bones. Emma and I had plans. We were going to have 2 more kids, buy a bigger house, take Lily to Disney World when she was old enough to remember it. We had this whole future mapped out. He pushed his water glass in small circles on the table. Then she got diagnosed and we had 6 months instead of 60 years. All those plans just evaporated. How do you do it? Ava asked. Parent alone. Run a business alone, not fall apart. Who says I don't fall apart? I just do it after Lily's asleep. Their food arrived, interrupting the moment. The burger was, objectively, the best thing Daniel had eaten in months. Ava picked at her salad with the appetite of someone for whom food had become a necessary chore rather than a pleasure. You need to eat, Daniel said. If you're starting treatment soon, you need your strength. You sound like my assistant. Your assistant's right. Ava speared a piece of lettuce. Are you always this bossy? Only when people I care about aren't taking care of themselves. He paused, realizing what he'd said. I mean, it's okay. Ava's expression softened. It's actually nice. Nobody's worried about whether I eat lunch in I can't remember how long. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Daniel watched the city move below them. Boats on the river, cars on the streets. Thousands of people living their own complicated lives. From this height, it all looked ordered, manageable, like a well-designed model. Tell me about Lily, Ava said. What's she like? Daniel's whole face changed when he talked about his daughter. Ava saw it immediately, the way love and pride and fierce protectiveness all mixed together. She's obsessed with dinosaurs. Like, can name 40 different species, knows which period they lived in, corrects the documentaries when they get details wrong. She's 6. He pulled out his phone and showed Ava a photo of Lily in a T-Rex costume from last Halloween, roaring at the camera. She's smart, curious, stubborn as hell. Gets that from her mom. She has Emma's eyes, Emma's laugh, Emma's ability to see through my bullshit. She's beautiful, Ava said, and meant it. She's everything. Daniel put the phone away. After Emma died, people kept telling me that kids are resilient, that Lily would be fine. But I see her at night sometimes, when she thinks I'm not watching. She talks to Emma's picture, tells her about her day. She still sets a place for her mom at dinner occasionally, just forgets that she's gone. And I don't correct her because maybe some part of me forgets too, expects to hear Emma's key in the door, her voice calling from the kitchen. Ava's eyes were wet. I'm sorry, you've both been through so much. We survive, that's what we do. He met her gaze. What about you? If you could have anything, what would your life look like? It was such a simple question, but Ava looked like she'd been hit. I don't know. I've spent so long building and acquiring and expanding that I've never stopped to ask what it's all for. I have a penthouse I barely sleep in, a car I never drive because I work such late hours, enough money that I could retire tomorrow and never worry about anything material. But no one to share it with. No one who'd notice if I disappeared for a week. That's not true. Your assistant would notice. Rachel's paid to notice. It's different. Is it? Caring is caring, even if there's a paycheck attached. Before Ava could respond, a shadow fell across their table. Daniel looked up to find a man in an expensive suit smiling down at them with practiced charm. Ava Cross, small world. Ava's face went carefully neutral. Robert, what brings you downtown? Meetings, same as everyone. Robert's eyes slid to Daniel with undisguised curiosity. And who's this? My husband, Daniel Hart. Daniel, this is Robert Carlyle. He runs Midwest Commercial Holdings. Translation, he was competition. Daniel stood and shook Robert's hand, reading the other man's assessment in real time. Robert saw the calluses, the working-class clothes, the obvious gap in wealth and status, and his smile sharpened. Husband, Robert repeated. I had no idea you'd gotten married, Ava. You've always been so private. Some things are worth protecting from the spotlight, Ava said smoothly. Of course, of course. Robert was still looking at Daniel like a puzzle he couldn't solve. And what do you do, Daniel? I'm a mechanic. I own Hart's Auto Repair in Evanston. A mechanic? How refreshingly down to earth. The condescension dripped like honey. Ava, you always did have eclectic taste. Daniel saw Ava's jaw tighten, saw her preparing to launch into damage control, and decided to cut it off at the pass. Eclectic, he said mildly, or just good enough taste to see past someone's tax bracket. Ava and I met when her car broke down. She was stuck on the highway in a rainstorm, stressed about missing a meeting. I helped her out. She offered to buy me coffee as thanks, and we talked for 3 hours. Turns out we had more in common than our bank statements would suggest. Ava's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. Daniel has this remarkable ability to cut through nonsense and see what actually matters. It's refreshing in a world where everyone's performing all the time. Robert's smile had frozen. Well, how charming. I won't keep you two lovebirds. Ava, I'll see you at the Commercial Real Estate Summit next month. Wouldn't miss it. He walked away and Daniel sat back down, his heart hammering. That was, Ava started, probably too much? Perfect. That was perfect. She was fighting a smile. Did you see his face when you called him out on the condescension? I've dealt with guys like him my whole life. Rich people who think mechanics are too stupid to notice when they're being looked down on. You're not stupid. I know, but they always assume. Ava reached across the table and squeezed his hand. It was supposed to be for show. Robert was probably still watching from wherever he'd gone. But it felt real. Her palm was warm, her grip firm. Thank you, she said quietly, for defending me. You didn't have to do that. Partners defend each other, even fake partners. She didn't let go of his hand. Is that what we are? Partners? Daniel thought about it. For the next 2 days? Yeah, I'd say so. They finished lunch with the awareness that they were being watched, observed, analyzed. Jennifer Moss left before them, throwing one last assessing look at their table. Daniel paid attention to the small things Ava did. The way she touched his arm when making a point, the way she laughed at his stories about customer disasters at the garage, the way she looked at him like he was the only person in the room. She was good at this. The performance. But every now and then Daniel caught something underneath, a flash of genuine warmth, real curiosity, actual interest. It made the whole thing more confusing and more dangerous. When they finally left the restaurant, Daniel's truck sat waiting with the valet, looking even more battered next to the parade of luxury cars. This is me, he said, gesturing at the Ford with something between pride and embarrassment. Ava ran her hand along the dented hood. How old is she? 12 years. Bought her used when Emma was pregnant. We drove Lily home from the hospital in this truck. Then she's perfect. They stood on the sidewalk, the October wind whipping Ava's hair around her face, and Daniel felt the strange pull of not wanting to leave. I should get back to the garage, he said. Marcus is covering for me. And I have a conference call at 2. Ava hesitated, then said, Tonight, can you come to my office around 7? I want to show you something. Lily, bring her. I'd like to meet her. That surprised him. You sure? 6-year-olds in corporate offices don't usually mix well. I'm sure. Please? The vulnerability in that please got him. Okay, 7 o'clock. Text me the address. Ava smiled, rose on her toes, and kissed his cheek again. This time she lingered half a second longer, and Daniel caught the scent of her perfume mixed with something lighter, maybe just her shampoo. See you tonight, husband, she murmured. See you, wife. He drove back to Evanston with his mind spinning. The lunch had felt more real than fake, the connection more genuine than performed. That was dangerous. In 2 days, this would be over. Ava would disappear back into her world of mergers and board meetings, and he'd return to oil changes and parent-teacher conferences. Getting attached to a lie was the fastest way to get hurt. But even knowing that, Daniel couldn't stop replaying the moment when Ava had held his hand and looked at him like he mattered. At the garage, Marcus took one look at Daniel's face and started laughing. Oh no, you like her. I don't know what you're talking about. You've got that stupid smile, the Emma smile, the I'm in trouble and I know it smile. Daniel grabbed a wrench and focused very hard on the carburetor in front of him. It's complicated. It always is. Marcus leaned against the workbench. Just be careful, okay? You've been through enough. I'm always careful. You're never careful. You jump in with both feet and hope for the best. It worked with Emma, but this isn't like Emma. This is temporary. A favor for a favor. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of brake jobs and tire rotations. Daniel picked up Lily at 3:30, listened to her chatter about math class and recess politics, helped her with homework at the kitchen table. Normal. Grounding. At 6:30, he broke the news. We're going to visit someone at their office tonight. Lily looked up from her dinosaur coloring book. Who? A friend of mine. Her name is Ava. A girlfriend? Just a friend. Lily's eyes narrowed with the suspicious wisdom of children. Is she pretty? What? Why would that matter? Because you're making your nervous face. You only make that face about pretty girls and parent-teacher nights. Daniel surrendered. Fine, she's pretty. But that's not why we're visiting. She wants to meet you and I need to help her with something. Okay. Lily went back to coloring. Can I bring Mr. Stomps? Mr. Stomps was a stuffed stegosaurus with one eye and questionable hygiene. Sure, baby. Bring whoever you want. They drove downtown as the sun set, painting the Chicago skyline in shades of orange and purple. Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the city lights flicker on. This is where the rich people live, she announced. How do you know that? The buildings are too tall and too shiny. Rich people like shiny things. Out of the mouths of babes. Cross-development occupied the 20th and 21st floors of a glass tower in the West Loop. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of space designed to intimidate. A security guard checked their IDs and directed them to the elevators. This is fancy, Lily whispered, clutching Mr. Stomps. Very fancy, Daniel agreed. The elevator opened directly into Cross-Development's reception area. Ava was waiting, and Daniel saw her expression shift when she spotted Lily, something softening, surprise and nervousness, and what might have been longing all mixed together. You must be Lily, Ava said, crouching down to be at eye level. I'm Ava. Lily studied her with the intensity of a scientist examining a new specimen. You're the pretty one Daddy's nervous about. Ava's eyes flew to Daniel, who wanted the marble floor to swallow him whole. Lily, it's okay, Ava said, laughing. I make a lot of people nervous, usually because I'm about to buy their buildings. Are you going to buy our house? No, your house is safe. Good, I like our house. Daddy's fixing it. Ava stood and gestured for them to follow. Come on, I want to show you something. She led them through the office, all glass walls and modern furniture, and the ghostly silence of a workplace after hours. Most of the lights were off, leaving only the city glow filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. At the end of a hallway, Ava opened a door to reveal her private office. It was stunning. Corner view, custom furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than Daniel's truck. But what caught his attention was the wall of windows overlooking the city, lit up like a constellation. Lily gasped. Wow. Pretty great, right? Ava said. On clear nights, you can see all the way to the lake. She walked to a cabinet and pulled out a folder, handed it to Daniel. These are the documents you asked about. Trust paperwork, guardianship templates, educational fund setups, everything you'd need to make sure Lily's protected if something happens. Daniel stared at the folder, emotion closing his throat. You did this today? I had my lawyer pull it together. It's all standard stuff, but it's a starting point. You can modify it however you want. I don't know what to say. Say you'll fill it out. Say you'll make sure she's taken care of. Daddy? Lily tugged his sleeve. Why do you need that stuff? Daniel knelt down beside her. Just grown-up paperwork, baby. Boring stuff to make sure you're always safe. Am I not safe? You're very safe, I promise. Lily seemed satisfied with that. She wandered over to Ava's desk, examining the various objects, a crystal paperweight, a photo in a silver frame, a small sculpture that might have been modern art or a very expensive doorstop. Who's that? Lily pointed at the photo. Ava picked it up, her expression going distant. My parents. That was taken at my college graduation. Well, the graduation I would have had if I hadn't dropped out senior year. The photo showed a younger Ava between a smiling couple, her mother in a floral dress, her father in a suit that had seen better days. They looked proud and slightly bewildered, like they couldn't quite believe they'd produced this intense, driven daughter. Are they dead? Lily asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. Lily! Daniel was mortified, but Ava smiled sadly. No, they're not dead, but we're not close anymore. I got too busy, too focused on building the company, stopped returning calls as often, stopped visiting for holidays. When my mom had a health scare 2 years ago, I was in the middle of a merger negotiation and I told myself I'd visit after it closed. By the time I made it to Philadelphia, she was already home from the hospital and the moment had passed. That's sad, Lily said. It is sad. I made choices I thought were right at the time, and now I have this huge company and this big office and not much else. Daniel watched Ava's face as she said it, saw the regret etched in every line. He understood it, the way work could become a drug, a distraction, a reason to avoid the harder stuff of actual living. You have Daddy now, Lily announced. He's a good dad. He makes really good pancakes and he lets me stay up late on Fridays and he does all the voices when we read books. Ava's eyes met Daniel's over Lily's head. He sounds pretty great. He is, Lily yawned, suddenly exhausted. Can we go home now? I'm tired. Of course, baby. Daniel stood, still holding the folder of documents. Ava, thank you. Really, this means more than I can say. You're helping me survive the next 2 days. It's the least I can do. They walked back toward the elevator, Lily dragging her feet and clutching Mr. Stomps. In the elevator, she leaned against Daniel's leg and started to doze. Ava rode down with them, standing on the other side of the small space. She's wonderful. She's my whole world. I can see that. Ava was quiet for a moment, then said, Tomorrow's the board meeting, the merger vote. If this is going to blow up, it'll be then. You want me there? No, it's internal, no visitors allowed, but after, could you meet me? I might need… She stopped, looking frustrated with herself. I might need a friend. I can be that. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. At 2. You have your follow-up at 10. At 2. You have your follow-up at 10, right? Right. So we'll both know, one way or another. They stood in the marble lobby, this mechanic and this CEO, both terrified of what tomorrow might bring. Good luck, Daniel said. You too. He carried Lily out to the truck, buckled her into her booster seat, and drove home through the nighttime city. In the rearview mirror, he could see Ava still standing in the lobby, watching them leave, looking small and alone despite her expensive suit and her powerful company. At home, Daniel carried Lily straight to bed, tucked her in still wearing her clothes because she was too deeply asleep to wake. He stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, thinking about trust documents and guardianship papers, and all the terrible what-ifs he'd been avoiding. Then he went to the kitchen table and opened the folder Ava had given him. Page after page of legal language, templates for protection, frameworks for worst-case scenarios. He read through it all, making notes, filling in what he could. Somewhere around midnight, his phone buzzed. Thank you for bringing Lily tonight, Ava texted. She's remarkable. You're doing an incredible job. Daniel typed back, thanks, and thank you for this. He sent a photo of the folder, now half filled out. I've been putting this off for 3 years, too scary to face. I know the feeling. I've been putting off living for about 15 years. Also too scary. Maybe we both need to be braver. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, maybe we do. Daniel set his phone down and went back to the paperwork, working until his eyes burned and his hand cramped. By 2 a.m., he'd finished everything he could without a lawyer's help. Lily's future was as protected as he could make it. Guardian named, funds allocated, instructions detailed. It should have felt like surrender, like planning for death. Instead, it felt like love. Like doing the hardest thing to protect what mattered most. He climbed into bed and tried to sleep, but his mind kept circling back to tomorrow. His own test results, which might change everything or nothing. Ava's scans, which would determine the extent of her illness. The board meeting that could save or destroy 5 years of her work. 2 strangers, bound together by fear and necessity, and an increasingly inconvenient connection that felt more real every hour. Tomorrow would either tear that connection apart or cement it into something neither of them could ignore. Daniel closed his eyes and hoped for courage. Thursday morning felt different. Daniel woke at 5:30, an hour before his alarm, with his heart already racing. He lay in the pre-dawn darkness, listening to the house settle around him, trying to convince himself that today was just another day. But his body knew better. Today was the day of answers. He got up quietly, made coffee in the kitchen while the sky slowly lightened from black to gray. Through the window, he could see Mrs. Chen's porch light already on. She was an early riser too, probably already preparing the elaborate breakfast she made every morning, despite living alone since her husband died. Daniel's phone showed 3 messages, all from the middle of the night. The first was from Marcus. "Good luck today, brother. You got this." The second was from the hospital, an automated reminder of his 10 o'clock appointment with Dr. Reeves. The third was from Ava, sent at 3:47 a.m. "Can't sleep. Too nervous about everything." "Is it normal to be more scared of a board meeting than cancer staging?" Daniel typed back, even though she was probably asleep now. "I think it means you're human." Which is good, considering you've been pretending to be a corporate robot for 15 years. He showered, dressed in clean jeans and the button-down from yesterday, and went to wake Lily. She was sprawled across her bed like a starfish, Mr. Stomps tucked under one arm, her dinosaur nightlight casting shadows on the walls. "Baby, time to get up." She groaned and rolled over. 5 more minutes. "That's what you said yesterday, and we were almost late." "Yesterday I didn't have a spelling test." Daniel sat on the edge of her bed. "You studied all week. You're going to do great." Lily opened one eye. "You have your nervous face again." "Do I?" "Uh-huh. The same one from yesterday." "Are you going to see the pretty lady?" "Her name is Ava, and yes, later today." "Is she your girlfriend now?" The question hit Daniel sideways. He'd been so focused on the practicality of their arrangement, the fake marriage, the mutual assistance, that he hadn't stopped to examine what it was becoming underneath all that. "It's complicated," he said finally. "That's what grown-ups always say when the answer is yes, but they don't want to admit it." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't notice because I'm little." He kissed her forehead. "Get dressed. I'll make breakfast." They went through the morning routine, cereal and juice, backpack check, toothbrushing, the eternal hunt for Lily's other shoe. At 8:15 they climbed into the truck, and Daniel drove her to school with the radio playing softly and his mind already halfway to the hospital. "Daddy?" Lily said as they pulled up to the school entrance. "Yeah, dinosaur? I love you." Something in his chest cracked. "I love you too, baby. So much." "I know. You tell me every day?" She unbuckled her seatbelt and grabbed her backpack. "Good luck with your appointment." "How did you I'm not dumb. You've been scared all week, but it's going to be okay. You always say things work out." She kissed his cheek and jumped out of the truck, running toward the school without looking back. Daniel sat in the parking lot for 5 full minutes after she disappeared inside, trying to get his breathing under control. The drive to Northwestern Memorial took 25 minutes through morning traffic. Daniel found parking in the massive garage and made his way to the medical building, his footsteps echoing in the concrete stairwell. The oncology wing looked exactly the same as it had on Tuesday. Fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, the faint smell of antiseptic covering something more organic and frightening. He checked in at the reception desk, filled out the same forms he'd filled out before, and sat down to wait. His appointment wasn't until 10, but he'd arrived 40 minutes early because sitting at home had become unbearable. The waiting room was more crowded than Tuesday. An elderly couple sat holding hands, the woman's head wrapped in a colorful scarf. A middle-aged man scrolled through his phone with the aggressive focus of someone refusing to think. A young woman, maybe 25, stared at the wall with tears streaming down her face while her mother rubbed her back. Daniel looked away, giving them privacy, and pulled out his phone. There was a new message from Ava. "Just woke up, saw your text. Corporate robot is surprisingly accurate. My assistant once caught me practicing casual laughter before a networking event." Despite everything, Daniel smiled. "Did it work?" "I sounded like a malfunctioning printer. She made me promise to never do it again." "Noted. No fake laughing. How are you feeling?" Daniel looked around the waiting room at all these people facing their own private terrors and typed, "Scared. But I've been scared before. I'll survive it. You're braver than you think. So are you." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before Ava's next message came through. "I have to go into the board meeting at 1. Phone will be off for 3 hours. If you text and I don't respond, it's not because I'm ignoring you. Good luck. Show Marlene what you're made of. Steel and spite, according to my ex-boyfriend. Sounds about right. The next message came through as a photo. Ava in her office bathroom mirror wearing a sharp black suit and a tie that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly mortgage payment. She'd written in the caption, "Armor on, ready for war." "You look terrifying," Daniel sent back. "In a good way. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going for." Another message. "No matter what happens today with your results, you're going to be okay. And Lily's going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of it." Daniel stared at that message for a long time, trying to decode what it meant. Was it just the bargain they'd made? His help for her protection of Lily? Or was it something more? Something neither of them had planned for? Daniel Hart? He looked up to find a different nurse than Tuesday, younger, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Sarah. "Dr. Reeves is ready for you." Daniel followed her through the double doors, down the hallway lined with exam rooms, to the same small office where he'd received his non-diagnosis on Tuesday. Doctor Reeves was waiting, her wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose, his chart open on her computer screen. "Daniel, good morning. How are you feeling?" "Nervous," he admitted. "Understandable." She gestured for him to sit. "I've reviewed all your blood work from this week, and I've consulted with a colleague in hepatology. The good news is we can definitively rule out any malignancy. You do not have cancer." The relief was so intense it was almost painful. "And the bad news? You have what we call autoimmune hepatitis. It's a condition where your immune system attacks your liver cells. The bruising you noticed, the fatigue, those are symptoms. Left untreated, it can progress to cirrhosis or liver failure. But caught early, like we've caught yours, it's very manageable." "Manageable how?" "Immunosuppressant medications, regular monitoring, some lifestyle modifications. You'll need to avoid alcohol, maintain a healthy diet, and come in for blood work every 3 months initially." But people with autoimmune hepatitis live normal lifespans, raise their kids, work their jobs. "You're going to be fine, Daniel." He heard the words, but it took several seconds for them to penetrate. Not cancer, manageable, normal lifespan. Lily wouldn't lose him. "I'm not dying," he said, and his voice cracked on the last word. Dr. Reeves' expression softened. "No, you're not dying. You're going to live a long life, watch your daughter grow up, be there for all of it. You just have to take some pills and see me a few times a year." Daniel put his face in his hands and let himself feel it, the overwhelming, crushing, beautiful relief. 3 years of low-grade terror that he'd never examined too closely. The constant background fear that Lily would end up orphaned, all of it draining away like poison from a wound. "Thank you," he managed. "Thank you." They went over the details. Medication names, dosages, potential side effects, warning signs to watch for. Dr. Reeves printed out information packets and a prescription, scheduled his first follow-up appointment, and shook his hand with a firmness that felt like a promise. "You're going to be okay," she said again. "Go home and hug your daughter." Daniel walked out of the office in a daze, clutching the paperwork like a lifeline. The waiting room looked different now, still sad, still frightening, but no longer his future. He wasn't one of the cancer patients. He was just a guy with an autoimmune condition, manageable and survivable. In the parking garage, he sat in his truck and called Marcus. "Well?" Marcus answered immediately. "Not cancer. Autoimmune thing. Treatable." "Jesus, Danny, that's amazing. I know. You crying? Maybe. Good. You need to cry more. You hold everything in too tight." They talked for a few more minutes, Marcus extracting promises that Daniel would take the rest of the day off, would pick up Lily early from school, would celebrate this reprieve. When they hung up, Daniel sat in the concrete dimness of the parking garage and let himself cry properly, big, ugly, relieved sobs that came from somewhere deep and frightened. He wasn't dying. Lily would have her father. The future was still there, waiting, possible. After a while, he dried his face and checked his phone. It was 11:30. Ava's scans would be starting in 2.5 hours, her board meeting 30 minutes after that. He thought about texting her his good news, but something held him back. She was preparing for her own battle, her own moment of truth. His relief would feel like salt in an open wound if her news was bad. Instead, he drove to Lily's school and signed her out early, watching her face light up when she saw him in the office. "Daddy, what are you doing here?" "Playing hooky," he said. "You and me, the rest of the day off." "But I have math after lunch." "Math can wait. Life can't." They got ice cream even though it was barely noon, sat in Millennium Park watching tourists take photos with the bean, and talked about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about the diagnosis, simplified for 6-year-old understanding. His body was confused and attacking itself, but doctors had medicine to fix it, and he was going to be perfectly fine. Lily processed this with her usual intensity. "So you're not sick like Mommy was sick?" "No, baby, not like Mommy. I'm going to be here for a long, long time." She threw her arms around his neck and squeezed so hard it hurt. "Good. I was scared." "I know. I was scared too. But we're okay. We're going to be okay." They spent the afternoon being tourists in their own city, the aquarium, the museum, hot dogs from a street cart. Daniel soaked up every moment, every laugh, every time Lily grabbed his hand or called him over to see something. This was what he'd been fighting for, what he'd been terrified of losing, and now he had it, solid and real and guaranteed for decades to come. At 3:30, his phone buzzed with a message from Ava. "Scans done. Waiting for results. Board meeting in 30. Terrified." Daniel typed back, "You've got this. Remember, steal and spite." "Right, steal and spite. I can do steal and spite. Text me when you can. I'll be around." 3 dots appeared, then, "Thank you for being in my corner, even if it's just pretend." Daniel stared at that message, at the word pretend, and felt something shift in his chest. When had it stopped being pretend? When had this woman he barely knew become someone he genuinely cared about, worried over, wanted to protect? He didn't know. But somewhere in the last 3 days, the performance had become real. At 4 o'clock, Daniel and Lily were back home. She was doing homework at the kitchen table, and he was making an early dinner when his phone rang. Ava's name flashed on the screen. "Hello?" "It's stage 2. Her voice was shaking. "Localized, treatable. They think they caught it early enough that surgery and targeted therapy should work. I'm not dying, Daniel. Not today, anyway." "That's incredible. Ava, that's such good news." I know. I can't stop shaking. They want to schedule surgery for next week, start treatment immediately after, but the prognosis is good, really good. 85% 5-year survival rate." Daniel could hear the barely contained hysteria in her voice, relief and terror mixing into something explosive. "Where are you?" "Still at the hospital. The doctor just left. I'm in the consultation room by myself and I can't seem to stand up." "Stay there. I'm coming." "You don't have to." "I'm coming. Give me 30 minutes. He hung up and looked at Lily. "I have to go help Ava. Can you stay with Mrs. Chen for a little while?" "Is she sick?" "Yeah, baby. But she's going to be okay. She just needs a friend right now." Lily considered this with her 6-year-old wisdom. "You should bring her something. When I'm sad, you bring me hot chocolate." "That's a good idea. What should I bring Ava?" "Not hot chocolate. She's a grown-up. Maybe coffee?" "Grown-ups always want coffee." Daniel smiled and kissed the top of her head. "You're brilliant. Come on, let's get you next door." Mrs. Chen accepted Lily with her usual warmth, asking no questions but radiating approval when Daniel explained he was helping a friend. 20 minutes later, Daniel was pulling into Northwestern Memorial's parking garage with 2 large coffees from the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue. He found Ava in the oncology wing, exactly where she'd said she'd be. A small consultation room with 2 chairs and a box of tissues and pamphlets about treatment options. She was sitting with her elbows on her knees, her head in her hands, still wearing her power suit but looking small and lost. "Hey," Daniel said softly from the doorway. She looked up, and her face crumpled with relief. "You came." "Of course I came." He crossed to her, set the coffees down, and pulled her into a hug. She clung to him like a drowning person finding a lifeboat, her whole body trembling. "I don't know why I'm falling apart," she said into his shoulder. "It's good news. I should be celebrating. You're falling apart because you've been holding it together for 3 days while being terrified out of your mind. This is what happens when you finally let go." They stood like that for a long time, Daniel holding her while she shook, feeling her gradually calm against him. When she finally pulled back, her makeup was smudged and her eyes were red, but she looked more human than he'd ever seen her. "I brought coffee," he said, gesturing to the cups. Lily's advice. She said grown-ups always want coffee. Ava laughed, watery but genuine. Lily's right. She picked up one of the cups and took a long sip. "How did your appointment go?" "Autoimmune hepatitis, treatable with medication, not dying." "Daniel, that's wonderful." Fresh tears spilled over. "We're both okay. We're both going to live." "Yeah." He sat down next to her, their shoulders touching. "Pretty good day, all things considered." The board meeting went through, Ava said. The merger was approved unanimously. Marlene tried to raise concerns about leadership stability, but Jennifer Moss, remember her from the restaurant, actually spoke up in my defense, said I seemed happily married and well supported, exactly the kind of stable leadership Riverside was looking for. So the fake husband worked. Better than I could have imagined. Ava looked at him, her eyes searching his face. My assistant Rachel called right before the scans. She said the approval was contingent on maintaining current leadership through the transition period, which means Marlene can't touch me for at least 18 months, cancer or no cancer. I won. We won. That's amazing, Ava. It is. It's everything I've worked for. 5 years of planning, all validated in one vote. She paused. So why do I feel so empty? Daniel understood that feeling intimately. Because you got the thing you wanted, but it's not the thing you needed. What do I need? I don't know. That's something you have to figure out yourself. They sat in silence, drinking coffee in a hospital consultation room, two people who'd survived their own private disasters and had somehow found each other in the wreckage. Thank you for coming, Ava said quietly. You didn't have to. Our deal was just through today. You held up your end. You played the husband. You helped me get through the merger vote. We're even now. Even. The word sat between them like a stone. Right, Daniel said. Even. So you can go back to your life and I can go back to mine, and we can both pretend the last 3 days didn't happen. Is that what you want? Ava turned to look at him, and the vulnerability in her eyes was devastating. I don't know what I want. I've spent so long wanting the company to succeed, the merger to close, the board to respect me. And now I have all of that, plus a cancer diagnosis that's treatable but terrifying. And I'm sitting here with a man I met 3 days ago who feels more real than anyone I've known in years. Daniel's heart was hammering. Ava, I know it's crazy. I know this was supposed to be a transaction, a performance. You needed help protecting Lily's future. I needed a fake husband to fool my enemies. Clean, simple, temporary. Nothing about this has been simple. No. She set down her coffee and turned to face him fully. Daniel, I like you. I know I shouldn't. I know it's too fast and too complicated and we're from completely different worlds. But I like you. I like how you talk about Lily, how you stood up to Robert at lunch, how you showed up here today because I was scared. I like that you're real in a way nobody in my life has been real in a very long time. Daniel felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at something beautiful and dangerous. I like you too, more than I should, more than is probably smart. So what do we do? I don't know. I've got Lily to think about, and a life that doesn't include fancy restaurants and corporate drama. You've got surgery next week, and a company to run, and a world I don't fit into. We're a disaster waiting to happen. Probably, Ava agreed. But maybe... Her phone rang, cutting off whatever she was about to say. She looked at the screen and her expression shifted. It's Rachel. I have to take this. Go ahead, she answered with her professional voice, crisp, controlled, all business. Rachel, hi. Yes, I'm still at the hospital. Stage 2, treatable prognosis. I'll need to schedule surgery for next week, but I should be back in the office by Monday. Can you... What? Daniel watched her face change, confusion giving way to something like horror. When did this happen? How did she... Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up and stood abruptly. I have to go. Marlene's called an emergency board session for 6 o'clock. She's claiming I deliberately misled the board about my health status and demanding an immediate leadership review. But the merger already passed. It passed, but it's not closed. There's a 48-hour window where either side can back out if material facts were misrepresented. Marlene's arguing that my health constitutes a material fact, and that by hiding it, I've violated fiduciary duty. Ava was already gathering her things, her movements sharp and angry. She must have someone in the hospital feeding her information. She knew about the staging results before I even left this room. What can I do? Nothing. This is my fight now. Our deal's done, Daniel. You should go home to Lily. She was already moving toward the door, already mentally 3 steps ahead, back in warrior mode. Daniel caught her arm. Ava, wait. She turned, and he saw the fear underneath the anger, the exhaustion underneath the determination. You don't have to do this alone, he said. Yes, I do. This is my company, my board, my fight. You've already done more than I had any right to ask. What if I'm not doing it because you asked? What if I'm doing it because I want to? Ava stared at him. Why would you want to? Because in the last 3 days, you've become someone I care about. And I don't abandon people I care about when things get hard. That's not who I am. Daniel, let me come with you to the board meeting. Let me be your husband for real this time, not because of a deal, but because you shouldn't have to face Marlene's bullshit alone. They won't let you into the boardroom. Then I'll wait outside, but I'll be there. You won't be alone. Something in Ava's expression cracked. You're serious. Completely. She looked at him for a long moment, and Daniel saw the exact instant she decided to trust him, to let someone in, to accept help, to stop performing strength and just be honestly, messily human. Okay, she said. Okay, come with me. They left the hospital together, and Daniel followed her car downtown in his truck, driving through rush hour traffic with his mind spinning. This was insane. He was a mechanic from Evanston about to walk into a corporate board meeting like he belonged there. But Ava had shown up for him, had compiled legal documents to protect Lily, had offered resources and knowledge he didn't have. The least he could do was show up for her. Cross Development's building was imposing in the early evening light, all glass and steel and power. Daniel parked in visitor parking and met Ava in the lobby. She'd fixed her makeup in the car, reassembled her armor, but he could see the cracks underneath. Rachel will meet us on 20, she said as they rode the elevator up. She'll brief me on exactly what Marlene's claiming. The board members are already gathering. And what's your play? The truth. That I was diagnosed this week. That I'm pursuing treatment immediately. That my prognosis is excellent, and I'm fully capable of leading the company through the transition and beyond. That Marlene's concern trolling is actually a transparent power grab. Think they'll buy it? Depends on who Marlene's already poisoned against me. The elevator doors opened to reveal Rachel waiting, a woman in her late 20s with dark hair and a practical ponytail and the kind of competence that came from managing chaos daily. Her eyes widened when she saw Daniel. Rachel, this is my husband Daniel. Daniel, my assistant Rachel. Rachel's expression was pure confusion. I'm sorry, you're what? Long story, Ava said. Very long story. Brief me on Marlene's accusations. Rachel fell into step beside them, rattling off details while Daniel trailed behind, trying not to feel like an imposter. They passed through the office spaces he'd seen last night, now populated with stressed-looking people in expensive clothes, all radiating the particular anxiety of corporate crisis. The boardroom was at the far end of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive table that could seat 20. Board members were already arriving, men and women in their 50s and 60s, all power and money and barely concealed ambition. Marlene was holding court near the windows, her silver hair perfect, her navy suit impeccable. When she saw Ava, her smile was pure venom. Ava, so glad you could make it. And you brought... Her eyes landed on Daniel, dismissive and calculating. Your mechanic. How quaint. My husband, Ava corrected, her voice steel. And he's here because, unlike some people, I actually have a support system that isn't built on backstabbing and manipulation. Several board members looked uncomfortable. One older man, distinguished with white hair and kind eyes, stepped forward. Ava, perhaps we should talk privately before the session begins. Of course, William. Ava touched Daniel's arm. Wait here. She disappeared into a smaller conference room with William, leaving Daniel alone in enemy territory. Rachel appeared at his elbow. So, she said conversationally, How long have you actually been married to my boss? Define, actually. That's what I thought. But she was smiling. For what it's worth, in 3 years of working for Ava, I've never seen her look at anyone the way she looks at you. Whatever this is, it's not entirely fake. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. Before he could formulate a response, Marlene approached, circling like a shark. Mr. Hart, such an unexpected addition to our little drama. Her voice dripped condescension. Tell me, how does it feel to be a pawn in Ava's desperate attempt to appear stable? I wouldn't know, Daniel said evenly. I'm not a pawn. I'm her partner. Her partner? Marlene laughed. A mechanic from Evanston. No offense, but you're rather obviously out of your depth here. Maybe, but at least I know the difference between supporting someone and sabotaging them. Can you say the same? Marlene's smile froze. Careful, Mr. Hart. You're playing in a world you don't understand. I understand power plays. I understand people who tear others down to make themselves feel bigger. And I understand that attacking someone when they're dealing with a cancer diagnosis makes you exactly the kind of person nobody should trust with leadership. The boardroom had gone very quiet. Several people were watching the exchange with interest. Marlene's face flushed. I'm protecting this company's interests. Ava deliberately withheld material health information during critical merger negotiations. That's a fireable offense. She was diagnosed 4 days ago. The merger vote was today. You want to fire her for not announcing her cancer diagnosis during the exact week it was happening? While she was terrified and trying to hold everything together? Daniel's voice was rising, his anger finally breaking through. You're not protecting the company. You're exploiting her vulnerability to grab power. Everyone in this room knows it. William emerged from the conference room with Ava behind him. He'd clearly heard at least part of Daniel's speech because his expression had shifted from neutral to thoughtful. I think, William said slowly, that we need to examine exactly what we're doing here. Marlene, you've called an emergency session claiming Ava's health represents a material misrepresentation. But from what I understand, she received her diagnosis this week and has already secured a positive treatment plan. Is that correct, Ava? Stage 2, Ava said clearly. Localized, caught early, excellent prognosis. Surgery scheduled for next week, followed by targeted therapy. My oncologist expects full recovery with minimal disruption to my ability to work. And you didn't think to inform the board before the merger vote? Marlene pressed. I didn't think my medical information was the board's business, Marlene. I'm pursuing treatment. I'm maintaining my responsibilities, and I'm perfectly capable of leading this company. What I'm not capable of is tolerating thinly veiled power grabs disguised as concern. The room erupted in murmured conversations. William held up a hand for silence. I propose we table this emergency session and reconvene Monday morning to discuss transition planning and support structures to ensure continuity of leadership during Ava's treatment. Does anyone object? Several board members shook their heads. Marlene looked ready to explode. This is highly irregular, William. The bylaws state that we act in the company's best interest, William interrupted. And throwing our CEO into crisis mode while she's preparing for cancer surgery is not in anyone's best interest except yours. Motion to table. All in favor? A chorus of ayes. Marlene was outnumbered, and she knew it. This isn't over, she said coldly, gathering her things. No, Ava agreed, but you've lost. Gracefully or not, you've lost. Marlene swept out of the boardroom, and the tension broke. Board members approached Ava with genuine concern, offering support and well wishes. Daniel stood to the side, watching her navigate it all with grace and strength, and felt something fierce and protective surge in his chest. This woman, this impossible, driven, brilliant woman who'd been so alone she'd had to hire a fake husband just to survive her own board of directors. She deserved better. She deserved everything. After 20 minutes of conversations and reassurances, the boardroom finally cleared. Ava found Daniel by the windows, staring out at the city lights. You defended me, she said. Of course I did. You called Marlene out in front of the entire board. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. She was being cruel, and I don't tolerate cruelty. Ava stepped closer, close enough that Daniel could smell her perfume, see the gold flecks in her eyes. Thank you for coming, for staying, for everything. You're welcome. They stood there, the city glittering below them, and Daniel felt the weight of the moment, the end of their deal, the beginning of something neither of them had planned for. "I should go," he said, even though he didn't want to. "Lily's with Mrs. Chen and it's getting late." "Right, of course." Ava's disappointment was visible. "Thank you again, Daniel, for these 3 days. They changed everything." He wanted to say more, wanted to close the distance between them, wanted to kiss her the way he'd been thinking about kissing her since lunch yesterday. But the reality of their different lives, their different worlds, felt insurmountable. So instead, he just nodded and walked away, leaving Ava standing alone in her boardroom, surrounded by everything she'd built and still somehow empty. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. Daniel stood alone in the mirrored box, watching his reflection fracture and multiply in the polished steel. He looked tired, out of place in his button-down and jeans among all those power suits and corporate polish. But more than that, he looked like a man walking away from something that mattered. The parking garage was nearly empty now, most of the building's occupants having gone home hours ago. Daniel sat in his truck for a long moment before starting the engine, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his mind replaying every moment of the last 3 days. Meeting Ava in the hospital waiting room, the fake marriage that had saved her merger, lunch at 16, the way she'd looked at him when he defended her to Marlene. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Lily fell asleep on my couch watching nature documentaries. Don't rush, she's fine here." Daniel texted back his thanks and sat in the truck, engine off, surrounded by concrete and the echoing drip of water from somewhere in the structure. He should feel relieved. The deal was done. Both of them had survived their medical scares. Ava's merger had gone through. Everything had worked out exactly as planned. So why did he feel like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life by walking away? His phone rang. Ava's name lit up the screen, and Daniel's heart jumped. "Hello? Don't go home yet." Her voice was breathless, urgent. "Please, can you come back up? Just for a minute?" "Are you okay?" "No, yes, I don't know. Please, Daniel." He was already getting out of the truck. "I'm on my way." The elevator ride back up felt eternal. When the doors opened on the 20th floor, Ava was waiting, still in her suit but with her jacket off and her hair slightly disheveled, where she'd been running her hands through it. The office behind her was dark, except for the security lights and the city glow through the windows. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I know you need to get home to Lily. I know this is crazy, but I can't let you just walk away without saying—" She stopped, frustrated with herself, and Daniel waited. "The last 3 days," Ava started again, "they were supposed to be a transaction, business. You help me, I help you, we both get what we need and go our separate ways. Clean and simple." Nothing about this was clean or simple. "No." She moved closer, her eyes searching his face. Somewhere between the fake marriage and the real conversations, between pretending for Marlene and actually caring what happened, it stopped being a performance, at least for me. And I hope, maybe for you too. Daniel's throat was tight. "Ava, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "I've spent 15 years building walls. Professional walls, emotional walls, walls that kept me safe and focused and alone. And then you showed up in a hospital waiting room and agreed to the most insane plan I've ever concocted, and somehow in 3 days you've dismantled every single one of those walls. You make me want things I convinced myself I didn't need. Family dinners and Saturday mornings, and someone who gives a damn if I eat lunch." "I do give a damn," Daniel said quietly. "I know. That's what terrifies me." Ava's hands twisted together. "Because we make no sense. I'm a CEO with a company to run and cancer to fight. You're a single dad with a 6-year-old and a garage to manage. We live in different worlds, Daniel. Different tax brackets, different social circles, different everything." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying that despite all of that, despite every logical reason why this is a terrible idea, I want to try. I want to see if this thing between us is real. I want to take you and Lily to dinner and not have it be a performance. I want to know what your Sundays look like, and whether you're a morning person and if you prefer action movies or comedies." She paused, vulnerable and raw. "I want more than 3 days." Daniel felt like all the air had left his lungs. This brilliant, powerful woman was standing in her darkened office at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night asking him for a chance. not asking for guarantees or promises, just asking if they could try. I want that too, he said. I have since yesterday, maybe earlier. But Ava, my life isn't glamorous. It's school pickups and mac and cheese dinners and falling asleep on the couch during movie night. It's a mortgage I'm barely keeping up with, and a truck that needs new brakes, and a daughter who needs stability more than she needs her dad dating some CEO she barely knows. I'm not some CEO, Ava said, and there was hurt in her voice. I'm just me, trying to figure out how to be a person instead of a company. Daniel crossed to her, closing the distance between them. I know, and you're incredible, but Lily has to come first. She always has to come first. I wouldn't want it any other way. Daniel, I met Lily. She's remarkable, and I would never ask you to choose between us or put me ahead of her needs. I'm just asking if there's room in your life for me to be part of it. Slowly, carefully, however it needs to happen. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw past the expensive suit and the corner office to the woman underneath, lonely and brave and terrified of rejection. The same fear he felt every time he thought about opening his heart again after Emma. I'm scared, he admitted. The last time I let myself care about someone this much, I lost her, and it almost destroyed me. I don't know if I can survive that again. I'm scared too, Ava said. I'm scared that I'll mess this up, that I don't know how to be in a relationship, that I'll hurt you or Lily without meaning to. I'm scared that my cancer will come back, that the treatment won't work, that I'll finally find something worth living for just in time to lose it. They stood there, two damaged people in a dark office, being honest about their fears in a way that felt more intimate than any kiss. What if we're both scared together? Daniel said. What if we take it slow and figure it out as we go and don't make any promises we can't keep? Like what? Like I can't promise you fancy dinners and corporate events and fitting into your world, but I can promise honesty. I can promise that when I'm with you, I'm really with you, not performing or pretending. I can promise to introduce you to Lily properly and let her set the pace for how fast this goes, because she gets a say in who becomes part of our family. I can work with that. Ava's voice was shaking. And I can promise to respect Lily's boundaries and your time and the fact that you have a whole life that existed before I showed up. I can promise to try to be better at the actual living part of life instead of just the working part. And I can promise that whatever happens with my health, I'll be honest with you about it. No more hiding, no more pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Deal, Daniel said, and then he kissed her. It was different from the careful, performative kisses they'd exchanged for Marlene's benefit. This was real and messy and full of 3 days of tension and fear and wanting. Ava made a small sound against his mouth and wrapped her arms around his neck, and Daniel pulled her closer, feeling her heartbeat hammer against his chest. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ava laughed shakily. That was, yeah. I've been wanting to do that since lunch yesterday. Me too. They stood there, foreheads touching, trying to catch their breath and process what they'd just agreed to. Dating, trying, taking a chance on something that made no logical sense but felt more right than anything Daniel had felt in 3 years. His phone buzzed with another text from Mrs. Chen. Lily's awake and asking for you. No rush, but wanted you to know. I really do have to go, Daniel said reluctantly. I know. Ava stepped back, straightening her blouse. Can I see you this weekend, you and Lily? Maybe something low-key, no pressure. The aquarium or the park or just coffee. Let me talk to Lily first. Explain that we're whatever we are. Give her a chance to process. Of course. Yes, that makes sense. They walked to the elevator together, and the ride down was completely different from the ride up. Ava held his hand, their fingers intertwined, and neither of them said anything because words felt unnecessary. In the lobby, they stopped. I'll text you tomorrow, Daniel said. Okay. Ava rose on her toes and kissed him again, soft and sweet. Thank you. For everything, for being brave enough to try this. Right back at you. He walked to his truck feeling lighter than he had in years, like some weight he'd been carrying since Emma died had finally eased. The drive to Mrs. Chen's took 15 minutes, and Daniel spent every second of it thinking about Ava's smile, the way she'd looked at him, the possibility of a future he hadn't let himself imagine. Mrs. Chen opened the door with Lily half asleep in her arms. She tried to wait up for you, but the documentary about whales was too soothing. Daniel took his daughter, feeling her settle against his shoulder with the boneless trust of childhood. Thanks for watching her. Anytime. Mrs. Chen's eyes twinkled. Your friend Ava seems very nice. She is. Good. You deserve nice. At home, Daniel carried Lily straight to bed, tucked her in without waking her, and stood in her doorway for a long time watching her sleep. Tomorrow he'd have to explain that he was interested in someone, that Ava might become part of their lives. Tomorrow, Lily would have questions and possibly concerns and definitely opinions. But tonight, he let himself just feel the quiet joy of possibility. He woke Friday morning to Lily jumping on his bed. Daddy, you're smiling in your sleep. You never smile in your sleep. Maybe I had a good dream. About what? Daniel pulled her down into a hug. About dinosaurs and adventures and maybe some other stuff. Lily squirmed free and sat cross-legged on the bed, studying him with her unnervingly perceptive gaze. You saw the pretty lady again, Ava. I did. And I like her. A lot. And I was thinking maybe we could spend some time with her this weekend. The three of us. If you want to. Lily processed this seriously. Like a date? Kind of, but also just hanging out, getting to know each other better. Will she be my new mommy? The question hit Daniel in the chest. No, baby. Nobody will ever replace your mom. But Ava might become someone important to both of us. A friend? Maybe more someday, but that's up to all three of us to figure out together. What if I don't like her? Then we'll talk about it and go slow and make sure everyone's comfortable. What if she doesn't like me? Daniel pulled Lily into his lap. That's impossible. You're the most likable person I've ever met. But if for some weird reason it doesn't work out, we'll be okay. You and me. We're always okay. Lily leaned against his chest, thinking. She did seem nice when we went to her office, and she has really good windows. She does have good windows. Okay, we can hang out with her, but I get to bring Mr. Stomps. Deal. They made breakfast together, and Daniel texted Ava, while Lily was absorbed in her cereal. Talk to Lily. She's willing to give it a shot. Saturday afternoon? Something kid-friendly? Ava's response came quickly. The Lincoln Park Zoo? It's free, outdoors, and they have a great children's area, plus dinosaur statues. You had me at free and dinosaurs. Noon? Perfect. I'll try not to be terrified. You face down Marlene Wexler. You can handle a 6-year-old. Marlene didn't have the power to decide if I was worthy of joining her family. Daniel smiled at his phone. Just be yourself. That's all anyone can ask. The next message was just a heart emoji, and Daniel felt his own heart do something complicated in response. The garage was busy Friday, a steady stream of oil changes and brake jobs that kept Daniel and Marcus occupied until mid-afternoon. During their lunch break, Marcus cornered him by the tool bench. All right, out with it. You've been grinning like an idiot all morning? I'm seeing someone. Maybe. It's new. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. The hospital lady? Her name's Ava. And we're trying. Taking it slow because of Lily, but I like her, Marcus. Actually like her in a way I haven't liked anyone since Emma. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. That's great, man. Really great. You deserve to be happy. We'll see. It's complicated. She's got a lot going on and so do I, but we're going to try to figure it out. That's all you can do. Try and see what happens. The rest of Friday passed in a blur of work and anticipation. That evening, Daniel and Lily ordered pizza and watched a documentary about marine dinosaurs, and Lily asked approximately 700 questions about Ava. What does she do? She runs a company that buys buildings. Is she rich? Yes, pretty rich. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know, but we can ask her. What if she tries to change our house? She won't. Our house is ours. Does she know how to make pancakes? We'll find out together. Saturday morning arrived with perfect October weather, sunny and cool, the kind of day that made Chicago feel like the best city in the world. Daniel dressed Lily in her favorite dinosaur t-shirt and jeans, and himself in clean jeans and a Henley that Emma had once said made him look rugged in a good way. They arrived at the Lincoln Park Zoo at 11:45, 15 minutes early, because Daniel was constitutionally incapable of being late. Lily bounced with barely contained energy, clutching Mr. Stomps and rattling off facts about zoo animals. At noon exactly, Daniel spotted Ava near the entrance. She'd dressed down for the occasion, jeans, a soft sweater, minimal makeup, and she looked nervous and young and completely different from the CEO he'd first met. When she saw them, her face lit up with genuine warmth. "Hi," she said, a little breathlessly. "Hi yourself." Lily stepped forward with the gravity of a diplomat. "Hello, Ava. I'm Lily, and this is Mr. Stomps. He's a stegosaurus, but he's missing an eye because my friend Tommy tried to play catch with him." Ava crouched down to Lily's level. "It's very nice to meet you both officially. I'm Ava, and I'm very glad you agreed to hang out with me today. Daddy says you have a big office with good windows." "I do, and you're welcome to visit anytime you want to see the city from up high." "Can I bring Tommy even though he tried to hurt Mr. Stomps?" "Absolutely. Everyone deserves forgiveness." Lily considered this, then nodded decisively. "Okay, you can come to the zoo with us." They spent the next 3 hours wandering through the zoo, and Daniel watched something remarkable happen. Ava, who commanded boardrooms and negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, was completely enchanted by Lily. She listened to every dinosaur fact with genuine interest, asked follow-up questions, didn't talk down or condescend. When Lily wanted to see the lions, Ava stood at the viewing window and learned about pride dynamics. When Lily wanted ice cream, Ava admitted she'd never had a snow cone and let Lily pick the flavor. "Blue raspberry," Lily declared. "It's the best one and it turns your tongue blue." "Then blue raspberry it is." They sat on a bench eating their snow cones, Lily between Daniel and Ava, chattering about the polar bears they'd just seen. Daniel caught Ava's eye over Lily's head, and the look she gave him was pure, unguarded happiness. This could work, he thought. This could actually work. By 3 o'clock, Lily was starting to fade, the sugar crash hitting hard. She leaned against Daniel's side, yawning. "I think someone's ready to go home," Daniel said. "But we didn't see the reptile house yet," Lily protested half-heartedly. "We can come back another time," Ava suggested. "The zoo's not going anywhere. Will you come with us again?" Ava looked at Daniel, seeking permission, and he nodded. "I'd love to." "Okay," Lily yawned again. "You're nice. I like you." "I like you too, Lily. Very much." They walked to the parking lot together, Lily holding both their hands and swinging between them. At Daniel's truck, there was an awkward moment of not knowing how to say goodbye. "Thank you for today," Ava said. It was really special." "Yeah, it was." Daniel wanted to kiss her, but wasn't sure how Lily would react, so he settled for squeezing her hand. Lily solved the problem by announcing, "You're supposed to hug goodbye. That's what friends do." Ava laughed and hugged Lily first, then Daniel, and the feel of her in his arms felt right in a way that scared and thrilled him in equal measure. "I'll text you later," he said. "I'll be waiting." They drove home, and Lily fell asleep within 5 minutes, exhausted from the day. Daniel carried her into the house and settled her on the couch with a blanket, then sat beside her and pulled out his phone. Lily's verdict: "You're nice, and she likes you," which is basically the highest praise possible. Ava's response: "Best review I've ever gotten. Better than Forbes calling me ruthlessly effective. How are you feeling about all of this?" "Terrified and happy and like I'm standing on the edge of something that could either be amazing or destroy me." "You?" "Same. Exactly the same. Is it crazy that I miss you already?" Daniel looked at his sleeping daughter, thought about the joy on Ava's face when Lily had declared her nice, and typed, "Not crazy. I miss you too. When can I see you again?" "I have Lily until Sunday night. What's your schedule like?" "Surgery prep Monday through Wednesday. Surgery Thursday. Recovery after that. I'll be pretty useless for a while." Daniel stared at that message, reality crashing back in. Ava had cancer. She was about to have surgery, face treatment, deal with all the terror and pain that came with fighting for your life. And he was sitting here planning dates like they had all the time in the world. "I want to be there. For the surgery. Is that okay?" The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before Ava's response came. "You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. I want to. If you want me there. I want you there more than anything. But Daniel, it's going to be scary and ugly, and I might be a complete mess. I've done scary and ugly and complete mess. I can handle it. The question is, do you want me to handle it with you? Yes, please. Yes. They texted for another hour, making plans for Monday evening before Ava's pre-op appointments, discussing logistics and fears and the strange reality of their situation. Somewhere in the conversation, it stopped being new and started feeling established, like they'd been doing this for months instead of days. When Lily woke up, she climbed into Daniel's lap and asked what he was smiling about. Just texting Ava. She's your girlfriend now, isn't she? Maybe. Is that okay with you? Lily thought about it with her characteristic seriousness. Will she come to my school events? If you want her to, and if she's able to, yes. Will she sleep over sometimes? Daniel's face heated. We're not there yet, baby. We're taking things slow. Okay, but when you are there, she has to sleep in the guest room. That's the rules. Noted. Any other rules? She has to like dinosaurs, and she can't be mean to you, and she has to let me help plan dates sometimes because I have good ideas. Those are excellent rules. I'll tell her. Sunday passed in comfortable routine. Grocery shopping, laundry, a visit to the park. Daniel texted Ava throughout the day with mundane updates that felt somehow intimate. A photo of Lily helping fold towels. A complaint about the price of milk. A question about what she was doing. Ava sent back her own updates. Reading pre-op materials and trying not to panic, ordering takeout because cooking for one was depressing, binging a medical drama, and yelling at the screen about inaccurate portrayals of hospital procedures. You're a mess, Daniel texted. Your mess? Yeah. My mess. Monday evening, Daniel left Lily with Mrs. Chen and drove downtown to meet Ava at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. She was already there when he arrived, looking tired and scared in a way her power suits usually hid. Hi, she said when he slid into the booth across from her. Hi, how are you holding up? I had 3 pre-op appointments today. They poked me, scanned me, asked me 1,000 questions about my medical history, and gave me a packet of instructions for surgery prep. I'm exhausted and terrified and really, really glad you're here. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. I'm glad I'm here too. They ordered food neither of them really wanted and talked about everything except the surgery looming in 3 days. Ava asked about the garage, about Lily's school, about Daniel's favorite movies and books, and whether he preferred coffee or tea. Daniel asked about Ava's childhood in Philadelphia, her first business deal, what she'd wanted to be before she wanted to run a company. A teacher, Ava admitted. Like my parents, I wanted to teach history, specifically the American Revolution. I was obsessed with understanding how 13 colonies beat the most powerful empire in the world. What changed? I realized I didn't want to teach about people who'd changed the world. I wanted to be one of them. And are you? One of them? Ava laughed sadly. I've built a successful company and made a lot of money, but I don't know if I've changed anything that matters. You're changing things for me, for Lily. That matters. Her eyes filled with tears. How do you do that? Make everything feel less scary just by being here. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just showing up. That's everything, Daniel. Showing up is everything. They left the restaurant and walked along the Chicago River, the city lights reflecting on the water, the October air crisp and clean. Ava leaned against Daniel's side, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and for a while they just existed together in comfortable silence. I'm scared, Ava said quietly. About Thursday. What if something goes wrong? What if the cancer's worse than they think? What if I don't wake up? Then I'll be there when you do wake up. And if the cancer's worse, we'll fight harder. And if something goes wrong, which it won't, then you'll know that you spent your last days being honest and brave and letting someone care about you. That's supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. They walked until Ava was shivering, then Daniel drove her back to her building and walked her to the lobby. In the marble entrance with its modern art and minimalist furniture, they stood close enough to kiss, but neither of them moved. Thursday at 7 a.m., Ava said. Northwestern Memorial, Surgical Wing. You really don't have to come. I'll be there. What about Lily? Mrs. Chen's taking her to school. I'll meet you at 6:30. Daniel. He kissed her, cutting off whatever protest she was about to make. When they broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. "I'm going to be there. You're not doing this alone. Get used to it." Ava laughed shakily. Okay, you stubborn mechanic. That's me." He left her in the lobby and drove home with his heart simultaneously full and terrified. In 3 days, Ava would go into surgery. In 3 days, he'd sit in another hospital waiting room and hope that this time, the person he cared about would come out the other side whole. The week leading up to Thursday felt endless. Daniel worked at the garage, spent time with Lily, texted Ava constantly. She sent him updates on her pre-op appointments, her anxiety levels, her attempts to get work done while her mind was spinning. He sent her photos of Lily's latest dinosaur drawings, stories about difficult customers, reminders to eat and sleep and take care of herself. Wednesday night, Ava called at 11 p.m., crying. "I'm sorry," she said when Daniel answered. "I know it's late, I can't stop thinking about what happens if I don't make it. My parents, I haven't talked to them in months. And what if I die on that table? And the last conversation I had with my mother was about why I couldn't make Thanksgiving. Ava, breathe. You're not going to die on the table. You don't know that." "No, but I know you're strong and the doctors are good and the surgery is routine. And I know that if you're worried about your parents, you should call them." "It's 11 o'clock. They're your parents. They'll answer." There was a long pause, then Ava said quietly, "Will you stay on the line while I call them? Just in case." "Of course." He listened as she three-wayed the call, heard her mother's sleepy confusion turn to immediate alertness when Ava said she was having surgery. Listened as Ava broke down and apologized for being absent, for choosing work over family, for letting years pass without visiting. Heard her mother's voice, warm and loving despite the late hour, telling Ava that she was forgiven, that they loved her, that they'd be on the first flight to Chicago in the morning. When Ava finally clicked back to just Daniel, she was crying so hard she could barely speak. "They're coming," she managed. "They're actually coming." "Of course they are. They're your parents. Thank you for making me call, for being here. Always." Thursday morning arrived too quickly. Daniel dropped Lily at Mrs. Chen's at 5:30 a.m., drove through empty streets to Northwestern Memorial, and found Ava in the surgical waiting area with an older couple who had to be her parents. Her mother had Ava's eyes, her father had her determined chin, and both of them looked exhausted and worried. Ava saw Daniel and her whole face changed. She extracted herself from her mother's hug and crossed to him, and he caught her in his arms. "You came," she whispered. "I said I would." "Daniel, these are my parents, Margaret and Tom Cross. Mom, Dad, this is Daniel Hart. She hesitated, and Daniel finished for her. "Boyfriend, I'm her boyfriend." Margaret's eyes went wide, but she recovered quickly, extending her hand. "It's lovely to meet you, Daniel. Ava's told us a bit about you." "Only good things, I hope." Tom shook his hand with a grip that suggested he was evaluating Daniel's worthiness. "She said you're a mechanic and a single father." "Yes, sir. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Lily. And you're here at 6:30 in the morning for Ava's surgery." "I'm here because she matters to me, and because nobody should face something like this alone." Tom's expression softened slightly. "No, they shouldn't." A nurse appeared in scrubs, clipboard in hand. "Ava Cross? That's me. We're ready for you in pre-op. You can bring one person back with you if you'd like." Ava looked at her parents, then at Daniel, clearly torn. Margaret made the decision for her. "Daniel should go. We'll be here when you wake up, sweetheart, but you need someone who's not terrified out of their mind right now." "Mom, I'm your mother. I'm allowed to be terrified. Go with Daniel." Daniel followed Ava and the nurse through the surgical prep area, past curtained bays where other patients were being readied for their own procedures. In a small room with a gurney and too many machines, Ava changed into a hospital gown and sat on the bed looking small and vulnerable. "I hate this," she said. "I hate feeling powerless." "I know." Daniel pulled a chair next to the bed and took her hand. "But you're not powerless. You're choosing to fight. That's the opposite of powerless." An anesthesiologist came in to explain the process, followed by the surgeon, a confident woman in her 50s who'd done this procedure hundreds of times. They asked questions, confirmed details, marked the surgical site. Through it all, Daniel held Ava's hand and tried to radiate calm he didn't feel. Finally, it was time. The nurse released the brake on the gurney, preparing to wheel Ava to the operating room. "I'll be here when you wake up," Daniel promised. "Promise?" "Promise." Ava reached up and pulled him down into a kiss that tasted like fear and hope. She stopped, and Daniel knew what she'd been about to say. Knew it and felt it echoing in his own chest. "Me too," he said. "Whatever happens, me too." They wheeled her away, and Daniel stood in the empty prep room feeling like his heart had just been carried off to surgery. He made his way back to the waiting room where Margaret and Tom sat holding hands, looking as terrified as he felt. "She's in," Daniel said. "How long did they say?" 3 to 4 hours. Maybe longer if they find anything unexpected." Tom stood abruptly. "I'm getting coffee. Anyone want anything?" They both said no, and Tom disappeared in the direction of the cafeteria, clearly needing movement to cope with the anxiety. Margaret studied Daniel with a mother's assessing gaze. "How long have you and Ava been together?" "Officially, about a week, but it feels longer." "She never mentioned you before this week. But when she called last night, the way she talked about you..." Margaret's eyes were wet. "I haven't heard her sound that happy in years. Maybe ever. She makes me happy too. Her and my daughter both. Tell me about Lily." So Daniel did. He told Margaret about Lily's dinosaur obsession, her gap-toothed grin, her fierce intelligence and bigger heart. He showed her photos on his phone, told stories about parent-teacher conferences and playground politics. And somewhere in the telling, Margaret started to relax, to see that he wasn't just some random guy her daughter had met. He was someone with his own life, his own love, his own capacity for caring. "Ava needs someone like you," Margaret said eventually. "Someone who sees her as a person, not just a success story or a business opportunity. Someone who'll show up at 6 in the morning for surgery without being asked. She needs a lot of things. People who love her, a life outside of work, permission to be imperfect. I'm just trying to help her find those things." "You're doing more than trying." Tom returned with coffee he didn't drink, and the three of them settled into the particular hell of surgical waiting. Time moved strangely, simultaneously too fast and impossibly slow. Daniel texted Marcus to let him know he wouldn't be in today, texted Mrs. Chen to check on Lily, and stared at the clock, willing it to move faster. At hour 2, a different surgeon came out to update another family, and they all held their breath until they realized it wasn't about Ava. At hour 3, Daniel got up to pace, unable to sit still any longer. At hour 4, Margaret started crying quietly, and Tom wrapped his arm around her shoulders. At hour 4 and 17 minutes, Ava's surgeon emerged in scrubs, her mask pulled down, and Daniel's heart stopped. "Cross family?" They all stood. "How is she?" Margaret asked. The surgeon smiled. "She did beautifully. We removed the tumor with clean margins, no complications, no unexpected findings. The tissue is going to pathology, but everything looked exactly as we hoped. She's in recovery now and should be waking up in about 30 minutes. The relief was so profound that Daniel had to sit back down. Tom was shaking Margaret's hand, Margaret was crying harder, and Daniel just sat there feeling like he could finally breathe again. "Can we see her?" he asked. "One at a time once she's in a room. Give us about 45 minutes. They waited, and those 45 minutes felt longer than the entire surgery. Finally, a nurse came to get them, leading them to a private room where Ava lay sleeping, an IV in her arm, monitors beeping softly. "She's still pretty out of it," the nurse said, "but she should wake up soon. You can talk to her. Hearing familiar voices helps." Margaret went in first, sitting by the bed and holding Ava's hand, crying and whispering things Daniel couldn't hear. After 15 minutes, she came out and Tom went in, sitting silently but solidly, a father's presence. Then it was Daniel's turn. He sat in the chair Margaret had vacated and took Ava's hand, feeling the warmth of her skin, the steady pulse at her wrist. She looked peaceful, younger somehow, all the corporate armor stripped away. "Hey," he said quietly, "you did it. Surgery's over and you're okay. Your parents are here and they love you, and I'm here and I..." He stopped, swallowed hard, and said the truth he'd been avoiding. "I love you. I know it's too soon and we barely know each other and this whole thing is insane, but I love you, Ava Cross, and I'm going to be here when you wake up, and tomorrow, and as long as you'll let me." Ava's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and hazy from the anesthesia. "Daniel?" "Right here. You promised you'd be here." "I keep my promises." She smiled, dopey and sweet. "Love you too, so much. Tell you when I'm not high on drugs, but love you so much." And then she drifted back to sleep, and Daniel sat there holding her hand and feeling like his whole world had just rearranged itself into something new and terrifying and perfect. Ava woke fully 3 hours later, more coherent but wincing with pain. Daniel had stepped out to let her parents have time with her, and when he returned to the room, Margaret was brushing Ava's hair back from her face with the tenderness of someone making up for lost time. "There you are," Ava said when she saw Daniel, her voice rough from the breathing tube. "Thought maybe I dreamed you." "Not a dream, very real." He moved to her bedside opposite her mother. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone cut me open and rearranged my insides. But alive. Definitely alive." Tom stood from the corner chair. "Margaret and I are going to get some real food. Give you two some time. We'll be back in an hour." After they left, Ava reached for Daniel's hand. "Did I say something embarrassing when I was coming out of anesthesia?" "Depends on your definition of embarrassing." "Oh no, what did I say?" Daniel smiled and squeezed her fingers gently. "You told me you loved me." Ava's eyes widened, then softened. "I did?" "You did. Said you'd tell me again when you weren't high on drugs, so I've been waiting." "I love you," she said immediately, completely sober now, despite the pain medication. "I know it's fast and crazy, but I love you, Daniel Hart. You showed up in my life during the worst week I've ever had, and somehow made it bearable. More than bearable. You made me want to live instead of just survive." "I love you too," Daniel said, and the words felt like coming home. "I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again after Emma. Didn't think I was allowed to. But you make me want to be brave enough to try." They sat in the hospital room holding hands, and it felt more momentous than any boardroom deal or merger negotiation Ava had ever navigated. This was real, raw, built on honesty instead of performance. "What happens now?" Ava asked. "I've got 6 weeks of recovery, then treatment, then months of monitoring. I'm going to be a mess, Daniel, tired and sick and probably impossible to deal with. Good thing I'm stubborn and don't give up easy. I'm serious, this isn't going to be pretty. I won't be able to work my usual hours. I'll have to delegate, admit weakness. The board is going to be watching for any sign that I'm not capable. Then we'll prove them wrong, together." Ava's eyes filled with tears. "How are you so calm about this?" "Because I've already lived through the worst-case scenario. I watched my wife die and thought my world was ending. And yeah, it was awful, and I barely survived it. But I did survive. And I learned that loving someone is always worth the risk, even when you know it might hurt." He brushed a tear from her cheek. "You're worth the risk, Ava." "So are you," she whispered. A nurse came in to check vitals and administer more pain medication, and Ava drifted off again. Daniel sat with her while she slept, thinking about the future they were trying to build. It wouldn't be easy. His life and hers were still fundamentally different in so many ways, but maybe that was okay. Maybe they didn't need to fit perfectly. Maybe they just needed to be willing to adjust, adapt, make room for each other. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily via Mrs. Chen's phone. "Is Ava okay? I'm worried." Daniel stepped into the hallway to call. Lily answered on the second ring. "Daddy, how's Ava?" "She's doing great, Dinosaur. Surgery went really well. She's sleeping now, but she's going to be fine." "Can I visit her?" "Maybe in a few days when she's feeling better. Hospital visits are kind of boring for kids." "I don't care if it's boring. She's important." Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, baby. She's very important." "To both of us?" "To both of us." "Good. Tell her I drew her a picture of a T-Rex fighting cancer. The T-Rex wins." "I'll tell her. I love you, Lily." "Love you too, Daddy." When Daniel returned to the room, Ava was awake again, watching him with a soft expression. "That was Lily," he said. "She drew you a picture of a T-Rex fighting cancer. Apparently the T-Rex wins." Ava laughed and immediately winced, holding her incision site. "Don't make me laugh. It hurts." Sorry. Don't be sorry. That's the sweetest thing I've ever heard. She paused. Daniel, I know we're taking this slow because of Lily, but I need you to know I'm in this for real. Not just with you, but with both of you. If you'll let me be part of your family. You already are part of our family. Lily declared it when she approved of you at the zoo. In 6-year-old logic, that's basically a binding contract. I'll try to live up to the honor. Margaret and Tom returned with sandwiches and the news that they'd booked a hotel nearby for the next week. We're not leaving until you're settled and on the mend, Margaret announced, brooking no argument. Over the next 3 days, Daniel divided his time between the hospital, the garage, and Lily. He brought his daughter to visit on Saturday afternoon, and Lily marched into Ava's room with the confidence of someone on a mission. I brought you Mr. Stomps, she announced, placing the battered stegosaurus on Ava's bed. He helps when you're scared or hurt. You can borrow him until you're better. Ava's eyes went suspiciously bright. That's very generous, Lily. Are you sure? Uh-huh. Daddy says you're part of our family now, and families share important stuff. Well, I'll take very good care of him. Lily climbed carefully onto the bed, avoiding the IV lines and monitors. Does it hurt a lot? Sometimes. But the doctors gave me medicine that helps. When my mommy was sick, the medicine didn't work. Is yours working? The question hung in the air, brutal in its childhood honesty. Daniel started to intervene, but Ava caught his eye and shook her head slightly. My medicine is working, Ava said gently. I'm going to get better, Lily. I promise I'm doing everything I can to stick around. Good. Because Daddy's happier now. He smiles more and doesn't look sad when he thinks I'm not watching. You make him happy. He makes me happy too, and so do you. Lily studied her seriously. If you marry my daddy, can I be in the wedding? Lily! Daniel was mortified, but Ava just laughed. If I marry your daddy, and that's a big if because we haven't even talked about it, you would absolutely be in the wedding. You'd be the most important person there besides us. Okay, just so we're clear. They spent an hour at the hospital, Lily chattering about school and dinosaurs while Ava listened with genuine interest. When it was time to go, Lily hugged Ava carefully and whispered something Daniel couldn't hear. In the truck on the way home, he asked what she'd said. I told her thank you for making you happy, and please don't die because we need her. Daniel had to pull over because his eyes were too blurry to drive safely. He sat in a parking lot holding his daughter while she patted his back and told him it was okay to cry, because sometimes grown-ups needed to cry too. Ava was released from the hospital on Monday, and her parents took her back to her penthouse with strict instructions about rest and recovery. Daniel visited every evening after Lily was in bed, bringing soup from Ava's favorite restaurant and staying to watch terrible reality TV that Ava claimed to hate but always wanted to keep watching. This is ridiculous, she said one night, 2 weeks post-surgery, as they watched a show about people competing to build the most elaborate cakes. Who needs a 4-foot-tall cake shaped like a dragon? Someone with very specific party needs. It's going to taste like fondant and regret. Probably. Want to watch another episode? Obviously. Rachel, Ava's assistant, became a regular presence, bringing work that needed Ava's approval and gossip from the office. One evening, she pulled Daniel aside in the kitchen while Ava was napping. I need you to know something, Rachel said. I've worked for Ava for 3 years. In that time, I've seen her work through the flu, a broken arm, and a death threat from a disgruntled tenant. I've never seen her actually rest or admit she needs help. Until now. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm just being here. That's everything. She's never had someone just be here before. The pathology results came back at 3 weeks post-op. Clean margins, no lymph node involvement. Exactly the outcome they'd hoped for. Ava's oncologist recommended a course of targeted therapy starting in 2 weeks, with an excellent prognosis for full recovery. Daniel was at the appointment holding Ava's hand while the doctor explained the treatment plan. Afterward, in the parking garage, Ava broke down crying with relief. It's really happening, she said against Daniel's shoulder. I'm going to live. I'm going to beat this. I never doubted it. I did. I doubted it every day, but not anymore. That weekend, 6 weeks after they'd first met in a hospital waiting room, Daniel invited Ava to dinner at his house. Not at a restaurant, not at her penthouse, but his actual home where he and Lily lived their actual lives. Ava showed up at 6 o'clock wearing jeans and a sweater, carrying a bottle of wine, and looking nervous in a way that made Daniel love her even more. "Come in. Fair warning, it's not fancy, it's just us. That's exactly what I want." Lily had helped make dinner, spaghetti with marinara sauce and garlic bread that was slightly burned on one side. They ate at the kitchen table with mismatched chairs, and Ava asked Lily about her latest dinosaur obsession, which was apparently the debate over whether T-Rexes had feathers. "Some scientists think they did, but the evidence is unclear because feathers don't fossilize well," Lily explained with the authority of a junior paleontologist. "I think they had some feathers, but not all over like birds. Maybe just on their backs and heads." "That seems like a reasonable hypothesis," Ava said seriously. After dinner, they watched a movie on the couch, Lily between them, gradually drooping until she was asleep with her head on Ava's shoulder. Daniel carried her to bed, and when he came back, Ava was looking at the photos on his mantle. Pictures of Emma, of Lily as a baby, of the life Daniel had built before Ava entered it. "I'm not trying to replace her," Ava said quietly. "Emma, I mean. I know she was Lily's mother and your wife, and she'll always be part of your story. I know, and I'm not asking you to replace her. I'm asking you to write the next chapter with me. Different story, different love, but just as real." Ava turned to face him. "I start treatment next week. It's going to be hard. Fatigue, nausea, possibly hair loss. I won't be able to work full-time for months. The board is already circling, waiting to see if I'm really capable of leading through this. So prove them wrong. Delegate the stuff that doesn't need you, focus on the big decisions, and trust your team to handle the rest. Rachel's competent, your CFO is solid, and you've built good systems. Let them work." "That's terrifying." I know, but you don't have to do it alone." "I've always done everything alone." "Not anymore." Ava stepped into his arms, and they stood in his living room with its worn furniture and family photos, holding each other like an anchor in a storm. "Move in with me," Ava said suddenly. Daniel pulled back to look at her. "What?" "Move in with me. You and Lily. My penthouse has 3 bedrooms, plenty of space, and it's closer to Lily's school and your garage. You're paying rent on this place. I own mine outright. It makes practical sense." "Ava, we've only been together 2 months. I know it's fast, but I'm going to be going through treatment, and I want you there. And I want to wake up to Lily's dinosaur facts and your terrible singing in the shower. I want the whole messy, complicated reality of building a life together." Daniel thought about it, really thought about Lily's stability and his own fears, and whether they were ready for this kind of commitment. Then he thought about coming home to Ava every night, about building something real together, about the life they could have if they were brave enough to reach for it. "We'd need to do it right," he said. "Give Lily her own room, let her decorate it however she wants. Keep our finances separate at first, make sure she feels secure. And if it doesn't work out, we need a plan for how to untangle without destroying what we've built. We can do all of that, whatever you need to feel safe." "Then yes, let's try it." Ava's smile was radiant. "Really?" "Really, but we're taking my truck. I'm not giving up my truck." "I wouldn't dream of asking you to." They told Lily the next morning over pancakes, and she processed the information with her usual seriousness. "So we'd live in Ava's fancy building with the good windows?" "Yes," Daniel confirmed. "And I'd get my own room?" "Your own room that you can decorate however you want." "Even if I want dinosaur wallpaper?" Ava jumped in. "Especially if you want dinosaur wallpaper. We'll make it the best dinosaur room in Chicago." Lily turned to Daniel. "What about Mrs. Chen? She'll be sad if we move." "We'll still visit her all the time, and she can come visit us too." "Okay." Lily took another bite of pancake. "Can Mr. Stomps come to the new place?" "Obviously." "Then I say yes. We can move." It took 3 weeks to pack up the house, sort through years of accumulated life, and decide what to keep and what to let go. Daniel found himself having to make hard choices about Emma's things, her clothes, her books, her recipe box. In the end, he kept the recipes, a few favorite books, and her wedding ring on a chain that he gave to Lily. "This was Mommy's," he told his daughter. "When you're older, if you want to wear it, it's yours. But for now, we'll keep it safe." Lily held the necklace carefully. Will Ava be mad that we're keeping Mommy's stuff? No, baby. Ava understands that Mommy will always be part of our family. Love doesn't replace love. It adds to it. Moving day was chaotic and exhausting. Marcus and several guys from the garage helped load the truck, making jokes about Daniel moving up in the world, and better not forget where he came from. Mrs. Chen cried and made them promise to come back for Sunday dinners. Lily ran from room to room in the empty house, saying goodbye to her old life. The penthouse was everything Daniel's house wasn't: modern, spacious, with views that went on forever. But Ava had already made changes. Lily's room had been painted and prepared with a mural company scheduled to come add dinosaurs to the walls. The guest room was set up as Daniel's space if he needed alone time. The kitchen had been stocked with Lily's favorite snacks and the kind of food Daniel actually knew how to cook. "You did all this?" Daniel asked, looking around. "I wanted it to feel like home, for both of you." Lily ran through the apartment shrieking with delight, discovering the second bathroom and the balcony and the fact that she could see Navy Pier from her bedroom window. That night, after everything was unpacked and Lily was asleep in her new room, Daniel and Ava sat on the balcony watching the city lights. "This is real, isn't it?" Ava said. "We're really doing this." "We're really doing this." "I'm terrified." "Me too." She leaned against him. "But good terrified?" "The best terrified." Ava started treatment 2 weeks later, and it was every bit as brutal as she'd feared. The targeted therapy left her exhausted and nauseous, barely able to make it through half a day at the office. But Daniel was there every morning, making sure she ate breakfast. Every evening, helping her to bed when the fatigue hit. Every bad night, holding her hair back when the nausea won. Lily adapted with the resilience of childhood, learning to be quiet when Ava was resting, bringing her drawings and books to Ava's bedside, sitting with her on the couch watching nature documentaries. She appointed herself Ava's official medicine reminder, tracking doses and times with the seriousness of a tiny nurse. "Time for your pills," she'd announce, bringing water and the pill organizer. "Thank you, Dr. Lily." "You're welcome. Also, you need to eat something or the medicine will hurt your stomach. Daddy said so." The board meeting in month 3 of treatment was the test Ava had been dreading. She was tired, had lost weight, and her hair had started to thin, though she refused to cut it short. Marlene would be looking for any sign of weakness, any excuse to call for a leadership review. The night before, Daniel found her in the bathroom, staring at her reflection with tears streaming down her face. "I look sick," she said. "Everyone's going to see that I'm sick and think I'm not capable." "You are sick, and you're also capable. Both things are true. Marlene's going to use this against me." "Then don't give her the chance. Walk in there tomorrow looking exactly like this. Tired, fighting, still showing up. Show them that being sick doesn't make you weak. Show them that you're still the person who built this company from nothing." "What if they vote me out?" "Then we'll figure out what comes next. But I don't think they will. I think they're going to see what I see. Someone brave enough to fight cancer and run a company at the same time." The next day, Ava walked into the boardroom at 9 a.m. sharp, wearing her best suit and her exhaustion like armor. The agenda was routine until Marlene made her move. "Before we conclude, I'd like to address the elephant in the room. Ava, you've been undergoing cancer treatment for 3 months now. I think we all admire your dedication, but perhaps it's time to consider whether you're physically able to maintain your responsibilities for your health and the company's interests." William, the older board member who'd supported Ava before, spoke up immediately. "Marlene, Ava has maintained every major decision, kept all her commitments, and led us through the successful integration of the Riverside acquisition. What exactly are you suggesting is lacking?" "I'm suggesting that she looks exhausted and unwell, and perhaps she needs time to focus on her health." Ava stood, and the room went quiet. "You're right, Marlene. I am exhausted and unwell. I have cancer, and I'm fighting it with everything I have. But here's what you're missing. I'm still here. I'm still making the decisions that matter, still leading this company, still building our future. And I'm doing it while my body is at war with itself. So if you want to question my capability, ask yourself this. If I can do all of this while fighting cancer, what could I do when I'm healthy again?" The room was silent. "I built this company," Ava continued. "I've spent 15 years of my life making cross-development what it is today. And I'm not walking away just because the fight got hard. If you want me out, you'll have to vote me out. but I'm not leaving voluntarily." William started clapping, and one by one, other board members joined in. Marlene sat frozen, outmaneuvered once again. The vote was called. Ava retained her position as CEO with unanimous support. Marlene abstained, which was as close to surrender as they were going to get. That evening, Daniel came home from the garage to find Ava in the kitchen attempting to cook dinner, something she'd never done before. "What's this?" he asked, eyeing the questionable contents of a pan. "I'm trying to make chicken stir-fry. I found a recipe online. It's going poorly." Lily appeared from her room. "It smells weird." "Thanks for the honesty, kiddo." Daniel took over the cooking while Ava told them about the board meeting, about standing up to Marlene, about the unanimous vote of confidence. Lily cheered and demanded they celebrate with ice cream for dessert. "We don't have ice cream," Ava said. "Then we'll go get some." Daniel turned off the stove. "Come on, family ice cream run." They walked to the neighborhood ice cream shop, the three of them together, and Daniel felt the pieces of his life clicking into place. This strange, imperfect family they were building, a mechanic, a CEO, and a 6-year-old dinosaur expert, somehow worked. Ava's treatment ended in month 5 with clear scans and an excellent prognosis. Her oncologist scheduled regular monitoring but declared her in remission with every expectation of staying that way. The celebration was quiet, just the three of them and Ava's parents, who'd become regular visitors, dinner at home with a cake Lily had helped decorate. "You did it," Daniel said that night after Lily was asleep, lying in bed with Ava curled against his side. "We did it. I couldn't have made it through without you. You would have found a way. You're the strongest person I know." "Second strongest. Lily's got us both beat," Daniel laughed. "Fair point." They lay in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ava said, "I've been thinking about something." "Yeah?" "About what Lily said that first time she visited me in the hospital, about being in the wedding." Daniel's heart started hammering. "What about it?" "I think we should give her something to plan for, if you're interested." "Is that a proposal?" "I don't know." "Is it?" Daniel shifted so he could see her face. "Ava Cross, are you asking me to marry you?" "Maybe." "Would you say yes if I was?" "Probably. But you should know I can't afford the kind of ring you deserve." "I don't want an expensive ring. I want a life with you and Lily. I want family dinners and homework help and someone who'll hold my hand through the scary stuff. I want forever with you, Daniel Hart. If you want that too." "I want that more than anything." He kissed her softly. "Yes. Absolutely yes. We're really doing this? We're really doing this." They told Lily the next morning, and she screamed so loud Mrs. Chen probably heard it 3 miles away. "I knew it! I knew you were going to get married! Can I help plan? Can I pick the flowers? Can I wear a fancy dress?" "You can help with all of it," Ava promised. "This is your wedding, too." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden with 50 guests. Lily as flower girl in a dress she'd picked out herself, Marcus as Daniel's best man, Rachel as Ava's maid of honor, and both sets of parents crying in the front row. Lily took her job very seriously, scattering rose petals with the precision of someone who'd rehearsed extensively. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Lily shouted, "No one better!" and the entire gathering laughed. Daniel and Ava exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Daniel promised to always show up, to be honest even when it was hard, to love Lily and Ava with everything he had. Ava promised to keep building a life instead of just a career, to let people in, to be brave enough to need someone. "I promise to eat lunch," she added, making Daniel laugh through his tears. "I promise to let you help when things break," he countered. When they kissed, Lily cheered the loudest. The reception was in the garden's event space, casual and joyful, full of people who loved them. Daniel danced with Lily first, spinning her around while she giggled, then with Ava, holding her close and marveling at how far they'd come from that first terrified meeting in a hospital waiting room. "We made it," Ava whispered against his shoulder. "We made it. I love you. I love you too, both of you." Lily appeared then, demanding to dance with both her parents at once, and they pulled her between them, the three of them swaying together while everyone watched and smiled. 2 years later, Ava's cancer was still in remission with no signs of return. Cross-development had expanded under her continued leadership, the Riverside merger proving even more successful than projected. But Ava had also learned to delegate, to take weekends off, to leave the office at reasonable hours. Daniel still ran Hart's Auto Repair, though he'd hired 2 more mechanics to handle the increased business. He'd also started teaching an automotive program at the local community college 2 evenings a week, discovering a passion for education he hadn't known he had. Lily was 8 now, still obsessed with dinosaurs, but also developing an interest in business after spending time at Ava's office. She'd announced her intention to become a paleontologist who also ran a company, and neither Daniel nor Ava doubted she'd figure out how to do exactly that. They'd settled into a rhythm that worked: weeknight dinners together, Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday visits to Mrs. Chen. Ava had even learned to cook 3 meals competently, though Daniel still handled most of the kitchen duties. They fought occasionally, usually about Ava working too late or Daniel being too stubborn to ask for help. But they'd learned to fight fair, to apologize quickly, to remember that they were on the same team. One evening in October, almost 3 years to the day after they'd first met, Daniel found Ava on the balcony watching the sunset. "You okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "More than okay. I was just thinking about that day in the hospital. How terrified I was, how alone I felt, how I never could have imagined that the stranger who agreed to pretend to be my husband would actually become my husband. Best fake marriage I ever had." She laughed and turned in his arms. "You know what the funny part is? I thought I needed you to protect me from Marlene, to help me look stable and supported. But what I actually needed was someone to show me that being supported wasn't weakness, that letting someone care about you was the bravest thing you could do. You taught me the same thing. After Emma, I'd convinced myself that I was fine alone, that Lily and I were a complete unit and didn't need anyone else. You showed me that there was room for more love in our lives." The sliding door opened, and Lily stuck her head out. "Are you guys being sappy again? Because dinner's ready, and Marcus called to say he's on his way over with that thing you asked him to fix." "We'll be right there." Lily disappeared back inside, and Daniel and Ava stood for one more moment looking out at the city where they'd found each other. "Thank you," Ava said. "For what?" "For being brave enough to hold a stranger's hand in a hospital waiting room, for showing up even when you didn't have to, for building this life with me. Thank you for being desperate enough to ask a mechanic to be your fake husband, for trusting me with your fear, for letting me and Lily love you. Best decision I ever made." "Mine too." They went inside to where Lily was setting the table and telling a story about her day, to the home they'd built together, to the life they were still figuring out one day at a time. It wasn't the life any of them had planned. It was better, messier, and more complicated and more real than any plan could have been. 3 strangers brought together by fear and desperation, now bound by love and choice, and the daily decision to keep showing up for each other. A family, imperfect and true and exactly enough.